beginning of the end for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun.
A mighty sword!
Strike while the iron's hot.
For Camelot! For Avalon!
Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Well, hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to the SPL Day 1 Phase 1 here, of course, April 1st. We heard a lot. Oh, wait. Gormizer Mifflin. That's also very important to get out there. We've been sitting here for a while today because we did the
April 1st. I went
other way around.
Phase 1, Day 1.
Yeah.
April 1st.
Okay, but with the way they're looking at it, now you're just holding up like a 14.
Yeah, but I got to see it in my own hands.
Well, we heard so much about the graphics package, and we needed to update it, but we didn't.
We do everything for the
fans. A whole lot of
fans.
time, and yeah, so we've been having a lot of fun here, Mifflin. This is gonna be a fun day, though. I mean, not only do we get to see potentially whatever quote unquote hidden picks. I love this lower third too. No joke, I actually really enjoy this one, but.
Very punk rock.
You know, some what's it called? Like hidden picks, new gods, new games, all sorts of fun stuff. Well, not new games. It's still Smite.
Oh, it's
but like,
Smite, yeah.
Like new matchups,
new
graphics. Yeah, you can save me here.
Yeah. Oh, like right now.
Yeah, like literally can save me.
So yeah, we've got some SPL
I gotta
matchups
work on
coming
this thing.
back.
We got
yeah.
a schedule to write.
Hurry up on the schedule, man. Yeah, so we've got some SPL matchups
I
coming
don't think
up.
you can
Obviously
see these
very
lightning
excited.
bolts. They're too yellow.
Dude, do you want me to save you, or do you want to make the schedule? Which one do you want to do?
A little bit. What? That's both.
Yeah, exactly.
You said the same thing twice.
So yeah, me and Gore have been working very hard on this graphics package. It is it's very Tony Hawk Underground 2. Like that's the vibe we were going for.
Is this Tony Hawk?
Well, I
was
mean,
that what I was shooting for? This looks like a high school notebook.
It was Tony Hawk when I handed it to you. What did you do to it?
You've got better handwriting than I do. I do good drawings. That's what I do.
So he does the good drawings. Yeah, we got SPL coming up. Gore, you know the deadline for the schedule was like
it's now.
It was like an hour ago.
No, it's now. Cause see, look. All right, look. See, I finished it. It's right here. It's done. Look at all the pretty drawings. This is your schedule for today. Your Camelot Kings taking on your Atlantis Leviathans, and your Olympus. This is a microphone. Your Olympus Bolts taking on the Oni Warrior at the very bottom. And you can see, look at the lightning bolts. Look, I got a Leviathan in there. There's a crown, the cool S. We spelled
it's the
everything.
Camelot King.
Camelot Kings. See, it's our schedule. And I'm pretty proud of this. And there's the real schedule. There you can finally see the official, actual, legible. Well, this is actually pretty legible. I'm a big fan of the Atlantis dragons. Yeah. The only note I had when you wrote that, I remember I was like, we missed a chance to write LAN in all caps.
Yeah,
so
just
that's
capital letters are lame. You know?
But that's a capital letters.
I mean it. They look
You
worse.
capitalized so many on here.
Yeah, on accident.
Oh, okay. Either way, there's your schedule for the day. Kings and Leviathans going to be kicking us off first, and then it's going to be the Bolts and Warriors tomorrow. We're kicking off match of the week, Kings versus the Bolts, and then the Dragons and the Scarabs. Pagon getting his debut in the SPL official. And I'm now gesturing with this microphone. This is why it's dangerous to give me things.
Why don't you get Mike to come grab that while we're still on the schedule?
Well, because he's doing camera stuff and important job work that is more than just grabbing a microphone from my hand. Scarabs and Valkyries as well going to be playing on Sunday, and a lot of fun stuff that's going to be happening throughout the week, Mifflin. But focusing in specifically on today, we saw the Kings and the Levis. We mentioned it a little bit towards the end of Waiting Room. It is a rematch from the World Semis. And there is a lot, not maybe a lot of weight on the set itself, but a lot to show off here. The Levi's is a hard team to beat, and now they've got the bonus of, hey, we just won Worlds behind them. That is scary.
It really is, man. The Camelot Kings, though, have got a couple of boons to them, right? They're the only squad to have taken a game off the Leviathans at Worlds. Is that the last time the Leviathans lost a game, full stop? Besides,
yes,
I think they may have dropped
they 3-0'd in the finals.
Yeah, but they may have dropped one during the SPL kickoff, right? I think they did.
Did they?
I'm not going to count that. We're going to go ahead and ignore the SPL kickoff.
Real? I have I have at least the game wins here. I can tell you.
We'll ignore it while Gore figures that one out. Otherwise, the Atlantis Leviathans have been looking unstoppable. That's the phrasing Trelly used when he was talking about his votes for this week, and I think it's the one that anybody can legitimately run with. Yeah, so they've lost exactly 2 games in the last like 5 months. That's not a whole lot, is it?
No, it's a lot if they'd only played 2 games, but they kind of been playing a little more than that.
Yeah, they played a lot of games.
Out of those 2, they won like 15 or something. So realistically, things have been going pretty well for them. Again, reigning world champs at this rate. And we even got to look into it. A little plug, if you go to youtube.com/SmitePro, you'll be able to take a look into the documentaries, the Worlds documentaries that has like
it's
a
very
glance
good.
at. And the one that was most recent was the finals. We got to see that on, what was it, Sunday, I believe, last week. And there was a lot of conversation specifically about how good, how concise like the comms are, how the Leviathans play is really clean. And the thing is that they're also just really nuts mechanically. They're a hard team to beat, Mifflin.
They really are. And I know the fans are always chomping at the bit to hear how the pros speak or what it is they're focusing in communications, how you figure out who your target's going to be. You get a very good look at that if you decide to tune into the doc. Again, that is youtube.com/SmitePro. And you get to see not only the Leviathans, probably a little bit more of them because they did the most games. They were winning most consistently, but you can see everybody's.
Well, the good news is we got to talk to Zapman a little bit earlier about this matchup and see his thoughts and opinions on the Kings.
The biggest focal point for improvement for our team is just to not get complacent. You know, after winning Worlds, it's easy to just relax. You know, you think you're good already and other teams have to catch up, but that's just a trap that, from experience, I don't want to fall into. Playing this kickoff tournament here, we treated it as practice. We made it out shown things or giving it our 100 or maybe made some dumb plays here and there, but at the end of the day, we took it seriously to win and good practice, and we feel really good where we're at right now. The way I feel about playing the Kings first, I think they were the 2nd best team at Worlds last year. They are just an intelligent team compared to most other teams in terms of draft and their preparation. I think they do things a bit more unique than everyone else. It's a little bit harder to anticipate what they're going to do. They always have kind of a strategy or two or a pick or two that you're not ready for. The biggest individual threat on the Kings is, I was thinking Twig because he's so unique in his God pool, but I think Tings is kind of their unsung hero. He's just so consistent. I think he's one of the top mid laners in the league and definitely goes under the radar a bit. He usually is never out of position. He plays really clean. Sometimes he plays unique God pools like Kukulkan. It's going to be interesting. They've had a whole offseason to prepare for this first game, and maybe they're looking for some revenge. I'm not sure, but it should be a good one.
Mifflin, a lot of talk there. A little bit about Twig when asked about who the big threat is, and then Zap immediately goes to someone that I almost regret to say didn't get drafted in our fantasy league, to Tings.
I drafted Tings.
Did you draft Tings?
Yeah, I got
Who
Tings,
am I thinking
man.
of then? That didn't. Oh yeah, no, you were originally you were gunning for Shinto, but that got stripped away.
Well,
from
everybody's gunning for Shinto.
Yeah, everybody was a little
40
bit gunning
KDA
for Shinto.
Worlds.
You got Tings. You're right. I completely spaced on that one. All of the Kings got drafted, actually, as it comes down to it. And Tings, someone that apparently is getting slept on, according to Zap.
Yeah, I think that the entirety of the Kings don't get enough respect for how good of a team they really are. We've heard time and time again from every single pro when asked about what it is that the Kings do well, it's their macro play. Every single one of them will let you know that they play the map better than just about anybody else. If it's that slow, methodical European playstyle that we see in the EU SEC has been perfected and honed to a fine point by the Camelot Kings. Yeah. These guys will show up and have a 0-0 slash line and a 6,000 gold lead consistently. It doesn't make sense how they're able to play the map that well. And I think that Zap's right to identify the unique God pools of the Kings as a legitimate threat going forward. They're one of the only squads still playing Hun bots consistently out of the jungle. Twigs bots, bar none, probably some of the best we've seen in the SPL. Big man Tings is going to play whatever big man feels like, the Kukulkan, anything with like a beam ultimate. Is solidly within his God pool because he lands those skill shots so consistently.
And he was landing them on ping. Like a majority of last year, he's playing these gods, and he was on like 100+ ping. I mean, he's landing it where you had to aim in such a specific manner. So getting everybody, fully on land in studio, it feels like this is just going to be a good year, an intrinsic just blanket upgrade for the Kings.
And, I think the Kings might have a little bit of a matchup vendetta here, right? And you got to remember that way back when Netroid was playing with the Leviathans, has since been replaced by Zapman. Well, replaced by Yarkor, right?
Yeah.
But eventually replaced by Zapman. And I'm sure it's never fun to be the guy who gets left behind, right? So I'm sure he's coming in with a vengeance, wants to prove to everyone that he was not the issue, he could step up. And look, Zapman said 2nd best team at Worlds. I think he has to contractually say that because it's the only team to take a game off of them. But the Camelot Kings are a squad that I'm keeping my eyes on. I've got them solidly near the top of the league.
Genetics getting double repped there. Netroid rocking a Genetics jersey. And that, look, eventually, you're going to be able to get your own. I'm just probably
Genetics jersey?
Yeah, if you want it.
Yeah.
Specifically
or
Genetics.
your own name.
Here's something else that has caught my eye, Mifflin, and this one's a riff onto me and you. Why did we write the Leviathan's name in purple and not the King's name in purple? Do you see, like, why is... And this, I will say, me and Mifflin did, he wrote all the names and I did all the drawings.
He chose all the colors, though.
No, you definitely pulled them out.
Okay, well...
I chose the colors for my
It was
drawing.
a limited crayon box.
I'm Ovrin, I'm yelling at us because this is like, that's a brand thing that we literally swapped their colors.
She wouldn't have noticed if you didn't blow up our spot, man.
She probably watched it. She got to look at this.
Oh, yeah?
Know. Yeah.
But why would you call attention to it?
Just to make life hell harder for us. Either way, it's going to be fun to see how this set shaking out. Mifflin, I think there's a lot of matchups here. And a lot that is going to be very important, but you know, the jungle styles between these two, like Panatom gets a little more hands-on than Twig. We've talked about Twig specifically being a very like setup-oriented player, typically pays off very heavily for where Tings is going to be, whereas Shinto just kind of feasts off of whatever, like, well, not even scraps. Panatom feasts off the scraps Shinto lets it have. That's the way it should be worded. And yet he still manages to keep up in level, still manages to be a big impact player. Do you think that this mid 2v2, especially at the beginning of the game, is going to skew one way or the other?
You know, before Worlds, I would say that Panatom was one of the more reserved junglers in the league, probably because he was giving up so much of his farm to Shinto. But since then, and even the most recent SPL kickoff tournament, Panatom has really stepped up his level of aggression. He likes getting involved in those early fights. He likes picking these gods that can start playing around level 2. Gilgamesh is something that is going to be intrinsically locked to Panatom in my mind now because of how strong his performance was on that pick at Worlds. So whether or not the mid 2v2 is important in the early phase, yet to be seen. It's whether or not the Atlantis Leviathans want to be that quick pace. But the mid 2v2, I think, throughout the duration of the game, is going to start rearing its head because, in my mind, these are two teams that are comprised of their mid laners and junglers. They play through those guys very consistently. Shinto a little bit more so than Panatom, right? Obviously, he's the focal point of the Leviathans, but the two-man core of Captain Twig and Big Man Ting is going for unorthodox combos, the Naja Ra, the Naja Kakolkin, things like that have been very hard to deal with in the past, and I think that is going to be one place that the Leviathans need to put their attention to limit the success of the Kings.
Now, I wonder how this makes you feel just in general, because last year, and you know, we talk about like the King's God pools, and in my mind, last year wide was not exactly the word I would use to describe it. Unique is what I would use to describe it, right? Because they had the least amount of gods played, I think, of all the teams that we saw throughout the league, but they were still playing things that nobody else was touching. They were the only ones
playing their picks.
Yeah, exactly. So is that something you think, at least for this year, is going to expand for them? Or do you think that's something that we're going to just see more of? You know, still see the Hunbat, still see the Kukulkan, despite the fact that they're maybe not necessarily the best meta picks?
I think that some picks will carry over to Season 9. I think that there's also a bit of a boon to Big Man Tings particularly, in that he was one of the few players who was willing to go towards Agni last year, and Agni is very strong, in current meta, so an indirect buff to the Camelot Kings, but it's something that I think the Kings have touched on in interviews in the last couple of weeks, that they are looking to expand their god pools, pick up some more of those more standard meta picks, and then also maintain their interesting, unique, eclectic pocket picks. Because if you can only play pocket picks, it makes it very easy to strategize around you, to figure out what it is that you're playing and start limiting that. But if you can intersperse those picks into standard meta, that's where it becomes a true weapon for your team. So I am keeping my eyes on the Kings, whether or not they are willing to take things like the Gilgamesh into the jungle, if they've got the Medusas in the long lane, if they're willing to go towards what is essentially the Leviathan's home, which is whatever Reddit says is an S tier, that's what the Leviathans play.
Yeah, something you've got to be worried about, right? And like even looking at it last year, like a lot of the games they had where they played like Raijin, it's because he was the best of the best. And guess what? Shinto played it really well. They do still have a propensity, at least from what we saw the last couple of weeks, to go to the Gilgamesh. We'll see whether or not they end up doing that today as we get into picks and bans for game number 1 between the Kings and the Leviathans. Kings are going to be your first pick team. Of course, again, brilliant. I love this neon look to the P's and B's.
I thought ours were better.
Yeah, well, I do. I did not like joke. I told you the other day I'm hanging this up in the green room, and whenever I'm having a bad day, I'm going to look at this, and it just makes me happier on the inside. Something that is worth talking about, though, here in terms of picks and bans. Up front, Yamoja was a conversation at the beginning of the year. 140-second cooldown now on her ultimate. You know, she received some nerfs. Healing got nerfed a little bit in Season 9 again. The shell change. Feels like she got beat down. Rong Yu is still just great at most supports, and he's phenomenal, maybe the best in the world at this Yamoja.
Yeah, just don't let Rong Yu play it. I think it's as simple as that. If Rong Yu is on a team, Yamoja should likely be banned against it, because that is how impactful he is on that pick. Very capable of changing team fights on his own. Very capable of forcing multiple Phantom pickups just to make sure that these ultimates aren't completely corralling the Camelot King. So good allocation of a ban, great recognition from the Camelot Kings to just make sure that that isn't happening. So far, largely standard across the board, though. I'm expecting some high priority towards mid laners, probably junglers as well.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this continues shaking out, because outside of so far the Daji,
oh, maybe Medusa here.
a lot of this feels real similar to us, right? Erlang Shin maybe a little higher priority, but against Twig that makes a lot of sense. And you had called it out. You know, we've seen Agni, I think, a little bit on the rise. Zeus was a really big power player. He's hovered and locked in first overall for teams here. Zeus has been doing a lot of damage lately.
He has been. He's had some changes since last we've seen him in the SPL. Now gets 20% additional movement speed once at rank 1 of the Aegis Reflector. Just toss out that shield, no longer encumbered by its weight. You move around a lot more quickly. You also auto-attack more quickly. That scales up, by the way, to 40% both ways when it's maxed out. That's a lot. Crazy that he's got a stim like that. And that stim has opened up the door for Zeus to shift up his style of play. You can go towards like a pseudo auto attacker, become that objective shred for your team, maybe even just like a nimble rod, because you don't necessarily need to go like Calamitous on Zeus, because he's already got so much burst in his own right. He's a very versatile pick, has great wave clear as well. But I am surprised to see the Kings prioritize it so highly, considering how many mid laners are still available through the first phase of bans.
They grab it first. Camazotz and Gilgamesh, a devastating top 2, I would argue, for the Leviathans. Gilgamesh turns out really good for Panatom specifically, but has performed really well in tandem. There we go, with Camazotz. Probably a hardcore pick. Is something that he did a lot at Worlds and worked out really well. Mifflin, Leviathans are just playing Leviathans right now. This third pick for them might end up being something special, but so far they're playing the same things we've seen them play. The other side, Kernanos and Bologna are alongside the Zeus. And Kernanos Zap played a few times last week, but no one else was really touching him.
Yeah, I think CERN is just good. He's got great scaling. The first ability, the Changing the Seasons, makes you very adaptable in the team fight. A slight buff to his ultimate, well, not even slight, it's a pretty significant buff, now also deals damage to the minion wave. Generally, the answer to CERN was, oh, he turned me into a pig, I'm going to hide in my archers. There's not much you can do about it. Those archers won't be alive through a CERN ultimate anymore, so you're just going to be stuck there, essentially polymorphed. This Bologna pick, though, is something that I'm very interested in. Especially up against the Gilgamesh. You're going to be able to disarm him, make sure that he's not finding value from the Stun Star Scimitar. There's a lot of interesting matchups there. You're going to limit some of that Hunter pool to the Leviathans, make them think twice about their own selection. Meanwhile, on the other end, the Leviathans just keep going to their standard. They just keep going to exactly what it is that they've been playing the entire time. And the Kings are a team that were very vocal about wanting to hide strategies, bring out unique picks this week. The Leviathans not once brought up hiding a strategy. They have not once shied away from showing what they do. The strength of the Leviathans is, hey, here's what we're going to do. Figure out the answer.
They did it last year.
We are just good at the game. This is not new for the Leviathans for their SPL debut this year.
I would argue the Ho Yi is new, and that's only because Zap, I believe, like within the last 2 months, I think it was during the SPL qualifier tournament, he tweeted out, stop picking Ho Yi, he's not great. And oh, how things have changed for Zapman. He's locking it in and playing it here up against the Kernanos. But, I mean, that's the thing that's really interesting to me. You kind of highlighted the Kings wanted to kind of hide the picks from last week into this week. Every single one of those was picked up by the Leviathans last week, so it didn't do a good job of hiding it. Leviathans let them scream out, this is what's meta anyway. The Bologna was picked up by Hardcore, had a really good performance, and has been doing really well throughout a lot of the scenes. I mean, you look in ranked, Bologna is one of the top bans, top picks as well for solo lane in terms of what she's able to do. Good damage down there. Going to be matching up presumably against the Camazotz. The Ho-Yi is the one I want to zone in on, though, Mifflin. Specifically the matchup versus Kern, because you had mentioned that Cernanos has the, the polymorph, the brambles officially has like the root on it, things like that. Makes it interesting in the duo lane, but Ho-Yi's just a good boxer.
He is. He's also the best hunter in the game at fighting from behind. If you're 2-3 levels down, a double bounce with Ricochet can turn around a lane on its own. So Zatman, probably the most likely to die on the Leviathans. That's the reigning bit, the running gag for this squad, but it is true.
I don't even think it's a gag. I think they do it intentionally.
It is just true. He dies often, and, well, this is a god that can play very well from that point. Nox locked in, though. That's your support. Lock in for the Leviathans. And it's got some really strong matchups here. Bologna going to struggle mightily dealing with that. I mean, it's great self-peel there. Even Zeus, if you're ever locking him down with Shadow Lock, that's about it. Curtains for the Zeus in those scenarios. You're able to limit the damage output. It's very telegraphed when you're going for Detonate. Slam him with that massive Dark Orb ultimate. All of a sudden, his damage output takes a major hit there as well. But my concern now, having a good look at the Kings draft top to bottom, is that their initiation is a little bit one note. It's Horus dashing in with Fracture or maybe an Eagles Rally with Bologna. Yep. Those are generally how you're going to start up your fight, both of which not exactly AoE CC, not exactly able to pick up multi-mans. Sure, you can land a double Bologna ultimate, but that's a little bit limited. And sure, you can get a double updraft, but that's limited in its own right as well. So who's going to make up for that weakness? It's going to have to be the Bastet. That ultimate might be the initiator in base defense and siege situations, but in team fights around neutral objectives, also single target, also likely going to struggle. Yeah,
it's going to be difficult to, especially because you have to thread the needle to find the exact target you want to lock down anyway. The Nox is the one that threw me for a loop. They did it once at Worlds, and afterward they admitted that it was just really good against the E-set in lane. And that was something that they did up against the Bolts. It gave Nox a 100% win rate in Season 8.
Love that.
Yeah, that is a truth that we can speak. Either way, a lot of this, Mifflin, has similarities, at least to things they've run in the past. Like you said, they're just playing Leviathans. I'm really concerned about this mid, I guess 2v2, but 3v3, specifically more hardcore when he comes in as opposed to really when the Nox comes in. The Camazotz, the Gilgamesh, and the Thoth, the top three they grab here, just feels really powerful for him.
Yeah, Thoth is a pick that I just think Shinto was meant to play, man. It fits his play style very well. I'm going to sit in my own tower line, I'm going to clear a wave, I'm going to go to my back camps, I'm going to clear those two, and I'm going to keep doing that until I'm level 20. And it's very hard to shut him down when he's playing that style, especially with the front line built around him, the Diver in Yarkor with Camazotz, the Space Control with Winds of Shamash and Panatom. I've got a lot of data on those two picks, on those two guys, so I know how that plays around that mid lane, and it is very frustrating to close gap on a Shinto.
I like that you quantify the Diver in hardcore on Camazotz. I think you could probably just stop the Diver in hardcore.
Yep, he's a diver.
Full stop. He just likes to do it. It doesn't matter really what he's playing.
And scubas.
He likes to go pretty deep. Again, it's looking good for the Leviathans in the draft. We'll see if they can match that play in game number 1 as we go to Hindu Man and Trelly.
Me and Trelly for the cast of the opening game of Season 9 SPL, the Kings versus Leviathans. Trelly, are you ready for this one?
Oh, I was born ready.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good news, I'm debating you pretty hard on chat too, because you're solo casting now, so I'll see you later.
Oh, all right, April Fools. See you, man. Okay, well, looks like we have BMT in the mid lane on this Zeus pick, and he is going for Eye of the Jungle, so that is going to be an interesting start. Not really, though, because Zeus is going to be getting dove quite a lot, and he does need the protection to go for it. So, it looks like on the flip side, pretty normal start here from Shinto, going with the Sands of Time, double flat pen build that we've seen so much out of this mid lane Thoth pick. The real question mark here for me, though, is this Nox pick that Rongyu is opting to go for in the support role. He's going to have a lot of, a lot of pressure to try to come back from because Nox is not a very strong early game. And that is going to be a difficult lane to have. So it looks like Netroid and Genetics are going to be going down for that purple buff here. And they're going to be looking for some pressure in this lane again against the Nox and the Ho-Yi. They're not going to have too much pressure. Ho-Yi doesn't have that much lane pressure, I would say. And it looks like they are just going to be stepping up to this lane. And it looks like the silence is going to go down. Genetics going to look for a little bit of pressure here.
Help.
Yeah, I think a little bit.
You sure?
Yeah,
sure?
a little bit.
You did better than I expected then. I was expecting more. Welcome to the game, though. Kings versus Leviathans. Genetics in that dual lane as well on the Horus pick up this game. Anything stand out to you at the beginning here, Trelly, in terms of itemization? Anything crazy going on?
No, just the normal benevolent stuff that we see all the time. Obviously, Rongyu is going to be prioritizing that sovereignty start that we see every once in a while because you only really have to learn about that Zeus for the magic damage. So you have 4 physicals. The sovereignty is going to be pretty solid for the support of the the Leviathan. So just going for the sovereignty over that Gauntlet of Thebes start that's going to come online a little bit earlier than trying to stack that item.
Yeah, we saw Gora and Myth on the desk talking a little bit about the compositions and how they're going to play out these games as well, Trell. And honestly, I do agree what they were saying about Camelot Kings. It's going to be very telegraphed when they go in for these engagements with the composition they put together here. Outside of maybe, Captain Twig using that new ultimate to maybe pull someone into the fray of danger here on the side of Leviathans, there's not really much, that you can really show them. It's going to be a blink engage, if anything, from maybe a Horus, right?
Yeah, a lot of single target damage. You do have the Lightning Store from BMT that's going to bring a lot of AoE pressure, but besides that, you're right, just a lot of single target engage, looking for picks before the fight starts, that sort of thing. But honestly, this Bastet pick that we see so much, the Huntress of Bass, a very difficult ultimate to land. We honestly see this ult miss more than it hits at this point, and you still can get the value out of that pick. So even if Twig's not crisp on these ults, there's still a lot of, lockdown potential with the 3 and just, a lot of damage coming out of this Bastet pick.
Level 2 in the duo lane right now as the mid lane mages have dinged 3 so far. At the moment, it's Tough versus Zeus in that mid lane. We're not touching it just yet, but right-hand side now, Variety getting looked at here as a leap in from Panitom does connect, but the drop kick off the mark, allowing Variety to just fall back to his tower and continue farming. Going back towards mid lane, though, Tough versus Zeus. I mean, really, Zeus has to step up to clear the wave, and Tough goes, thank you very much for the free poke.
Yeah, getting outranged in the mid lane is definitely going to be an issue, but right now, I imagine you don't want to be dashing on the lanes too much unless you have tabs on where Twig is. Anytime that Bastet can show up, you really don't want to have that evade and punish not down, just to be able to dash away from that, obviously. But something I do want to zone in on here, Variety is going for that teleport as Ronk takes a lot of damage.
Yeah, Genetics just stepped up a little bit too far, and there's the combo that Nox is going to bring to this support role. It's not going to do a ton of damage. We're building support options here, but it will do a ton of lockdown, and that's the risk that you have happen there.
Yeah, this is what the Nox pick does bring, a ton of lockdown if you don't opt to go for that bead start. Obviously, Genetics does have the blink, so anytime Rongyu's crisp with that Shadow Lock, you're going to be getting locked down and tons of damage with the follow-up. Rongyu is going to get credit for that kill, so first blood on the Nox support, and the full sovereignty is finished off of 1 back. That's going to be a huge power spike.
That 400 gold going to support. A lot of people wouldn't like it. The support player themselves, though, I mean, technically, it's giving your team that aura, so it is useful in the long run, especially what you were just saying, too, about how many physicals there are in this roster.
And then on the other side, as I was just about to talk about,
yeah,
Variety,
go back to it now.
Variety has teleport, something that we've
They're
seen fall
gonna
out
let
of
you do
favor.
it. There's a fight in mid lane again, as you see Big Man Tings dropping the ult down there. Twig was around, but only at level 4. If you notice, he would have just dinged 5 there a little bit earlier. 1 more minion dies. We may have ended up seeing Shinto in trouble, but now we can go to Variety.
Well, we do have a big win right there, because Shinto did at least use the purification bead. So now I think that's what Twig really wanted there. Maybe not trying to get that kill, but just try to get the beads down. Maybe a regain coming a little bit later. Now that Huntress of Bast is available, but this teleport start, when you're against a lot of CC, a lot of lockdown, could come back to bite Variety, but at the very least, he's going to have a good time out pressuring, just being able to back whenever he wants. That freedom is why this relic is picked up if you feel like you're not under too much pressure.
I guess the one question about that solo lane then is the fact that Bellona against Camazotz, obviously Camazotz a lot of sustain in that lane. Variety having that teleport lets him get back to lane and continue farming up there and not fall too far behind. But as you said, not having those beads as this game goes on could come back to bite him.
Yeah, we saw Panatom go for that early gank because he saw that as Zap does drop the Suns in that duo lane, just trying to get some farm and back it up there for his purple buff. But if Panatom's dropkick did connect, there probably could have been some form for a gank there. But Variety just going to be sitting pretty in that lane as he's just going to get his blue buff and back it up here. Again, the teleport is available, so if he wants to just go back to lane, that's a certain possibility.
Both junglers with the Jotun's Wrath this game. Cooldown reduction on the cards, very impactful for both these two gods. But then again, it also did get a couple of buffs this year. It's 45 power now. It's not too bad in terms of what it optimizes for the build. And looking towards mid lane too, Zeus and Toth here, both going for that Divine Ruin, which isn't really a surprise with these new, I say new, but we're really going to the pen options in mid lane first.
Yeah, the double flat pen build has been quite the start, but I'm surprised because usually on this Zeus pick, we're seeing a lot of that Legion Helm start where people want to get that protection online early, try to survive this sort of early damage from your Gilgamesh and your Yark and the Camazotz if you are going to be getting dove like that, as well as the Voidstone start. But it looks like BMT is just trying to get as much damage online early, as well as some anti-heal, just going to be dealing with a fair bit of sustain from the things like the Camazotz.
Yeah, I guess one thing to say there as well is I guess Shinto playing that Toth, you're going to get poked anyway, and it's not magical protection that gives you. So, you might as well just go for the raw damage and hope for the best. Only that one kill to talk about so far in that duo lane early on. Everybody continuing to farm up. I've not really seen much jungle attention to the duo lane just yet. But as I say that, you can just see Captain Twig on that left-hand side here, looking for good old Zapman. But he's also given a bit of a window here for Genetics to go in and steal away some of these obelisks. How important are these obelisks these days, Trell?
Yeah, the offerings were a little bit nerfed. It was completely really strong at the beginning. And then they said, you know what, this is a little bit too much. People are dying for them consistently, so it got nerfed. It's still very powerful, especially if you're going to put it on your support, give them a little extra DPS. As Genetics goes to the sky here, we're going to see an engage.
You also see the pull onto Panitom, who leaps away to safety but falls into Netroid's ultimate. Nice little pickup for the Kings here, finding some aggression towards the Leviathans now. And we'll see if they can continue to pressure here. Red buff is up on the left-hand side for Kings and about to come up for Leviathans too. But Genetics really trying to get this obelisk online for the side of the Kings and should be able to do so here. But Zap is around again, finds the ricochet, fractures away, does Genetics, but straight into the waiting clutches of Rongyu and Shinto. And a kill for that, is it worthwhile, is my question, Trell.
I mean, at this point, I feel like Genetics is just putting a little bit too much stock in that obelisk. I think they had the lead on the offerings as is. They probably could have waited for the next spawn and got it. But at least, you know, you do have the Indraceptor on your side if you do want to get a little bit more aggressive. It seems like Genetics is really putting some stock in that extra buff because he wants to get aggressive on this pick, blink in with the Fracture Stun, set up all sorts of damage. So it does seem like they're putting a lot of flack in that. But on the flip side, the other support, Rongyu now has 2 kills and is going into what looks like a breastplate. Gonna have a lot of cooldown on this, Nox. 2-0 on your support. Rongyu is making things happen.
And that's going to be more impactful as the game goes on. And as you said, physical defense is going to be useful. Dropkick this time from Panitom does connect with Variety. Variety holds his ultimate, leaps away back to the tower line just in time because you can just see Rongyu was on this side of the map on this Nox as well. There could be another gank potential though as Variety steps up again. Rongyu dashing in, looks for the silence route, combo off the mark. And Variety will slip the noose for now as Twig now ends up on that right-hand side to provide cover if a dive continues.
Yeah, it looks like the Leviathan's just recognizing that Variety has a fair bit of physical protection in that Berserker shield, so maybe needing some magical lockdown. The Nox coming over. Shadow Lock off the mark. If it did hit, they might have had a chance to try to kill the solo laner of the Camelot Kings, but it looks like they're just going to be posturing over here, trying to see if anyone will walk up to these oracles that are already down, but Rongyu is going to path towards the back camp, so I don't think they're going to be looking for a pick over here. Just going to get the mid camps and continue their farm game.
Not the worst composition for Kings, though, to try and rush down a Gold Fury if they see a window there, too. They find a pick maybe on Rongyu. They've got Zeus there to just drop the ultimate on the Gold Fury, burst it down relatively quick. And speaking of that Zeus a little bit more, looks like he's going for the Rod Tahuti this game, instead of what we've seen a little bit more of this Divine Ruin Spirit Desolation that you can see on the side of Shinto. Is there a reason for that? Does it just work well with Zeus's kit? Is that the reason?
Yeah, if he is opting to go for that Nimble Rod, the extra attack speed is going to be really impactful. He also could be building into that Chronos Pendant if he feels he just needs more CDR. Again, you're going to be taking a lot of continued aggression from this Thoth, so just try and have your abilities back up quickly. Either one of those, I think, are really solid on Zeus right now, especially that Nimble Rod. Wanting the attack speed, his shield was buffed recently, so whenever that shield is down, gets a little bit of movement speed and attack speed. So a little auto attack never hurt Zeus. But he's going to probably just want to hold off and not try to get too aggressive in this lane. As we've mentioned a few times, just getting outranged by Shinto is going to really start to add up.
Not a whole lot of goal difference between the two teams. Slight experience in favor of the Kings here, I would say. Just looking at where people just leveled up a little bit more. Twig, level 10, as Panitom just hits 10. Variety at 11. And I do believe Genetics was a little bit ahead there of Rongyu, who still has those 2 kills. Experience does matter, though, because it does give you those base stats, but more importantly, extra damage on your abilities.
Yeah, and I would say the big thing right now is BMT just ticked over to 12. He could get a second relic now. Those second relics are really when you're going to start trying to get aggressive, when you could have the beads and the Aegis. Now you have 2 different forms of defense when you're getting dove. Getting those on your carries before the enemy team are really going to start to add up if you want to go for this gold, as the Gold Fury is getting pinged. So it looks like these teams are going to try to put some form of aggression there. Final Judgment, probably the best confirmed tool on the map. Shinto did just tick over and finish that Spear of Desolation, so double flat pen now online.
Leviathans is now grouping around the Gold Fury. We did see the pings, as Trelly mentioned then. It looks like it was from the Leviathans as they start to hunt on this left-hand side. But Netroid and Genetics well aware of the danger here. Obviously, you've got Zeus coming back from base and Twig towards mid lane. So they relieve some pressure there, but nothing to be really scoffed at. Just a couple of left-hand harpies taken down from mid lane there at the moment. Both teams not surprising in this one, Trelly, taking the time in this game. First one of the season, you know. I guess from King's point of view, they lose the World Championships up against the Leviathans in honestly dominating fashion. they've got a point to prove here themselves.
Yeah, I think even after coming into the play-ins tournament as variety, takes a little bit of poke over here, and it's going to be running back to the solo lane. The blue buff is up, but they probably just want to make sure everyone knows that, hey, we've definitely been working in the offseason, as Rongju's going to look for some aggression on BMT. The beats are good, and he's just going to back off.
See, you don't need me. You just doing it all. I could just sit down again, you know? You just did it all in under the tower. Onto Zapman go the Kings, though, as the aggression in mid lane subsides. And Zapman trades out his beads. But as we just saw, you know, in mid lane, Big Man Tings did use his beads too. So 2 different carries then on 2 different teams that may be under threat around this Gold Fury. Rongju takes a bit of damage here. Netro trying to step up and gets pressured. He has to beads away. Kitty Cat pulls in Panitom. Panitom links back in though, keeping the pressure going. But he should fall down to Genetic's basic attacks. And Tings at the same time does manage to bring down Shinto, who was late on that rotation, trying to stay at range. Kings find 2 kills.
It really seems like there was a bit of a communication diff there. Panatom wanting to up down, trying to find the aggression, but the Leviathans could not get into that fight. After Rongju used all of his abilities, you really don't have any more engage. As the Gold Fury is going to get pulled, no one's even close to this.
I mean, what can they do then?
Yeah, that's a free Gold Fury for the Kings after that fight.
When you look at what Zap's got and what Rongju's got available, neither with an ultimate up after that engagement, no beads for Zap. There's no way they can contest that. The Kings out to play today and find themselves the first real lead of this game so far.
Yeah, and now you see a level 14 Zeus. That is going to start to add up. 12 minutes being level 14. BMT's farm game has been pretty insane. Already that Rod to Tahuti finish, sitting on a fair amount of gold right now, going to back and get a large power spike. You're going to really need to start to see these magic defense items come online. Yarkor, if you look over, no sort of defense built right now, just Blackthorn, high HP, Transcendence, big damage. You're looking over at Panatom, who for his quest obviously did get a tier 1 Ancile Runic Shield, or even a Caduceus Shield, whatever he wants to build there. Probably going to look to itemize into that because of how much damage this Zeus is outputting.
Would you love the Ancile here? Was that what your call would be?
Yeah, if he's going to be blinking in and onto this Zeus, I think he definitely wants that silence proc. It's going to help him out a lot, obviously. If BMT is able to detonate right now, it's going to be a huge chunk of damage. 5 or 4 levels behind right now.
You can definitely get a sense in that engagement too. The Panitom willing to die for his team if it's going to set things up. Diving back in there when he had his leap to escape potentially, was stuck around in that little skirmish. Didn't pay off in the end though, but it does show that both these junglers, we already know Twig is definitely someone that will do the best for the team rather than his own KDA. And Panitom in this one so far following suit.
Yep, it looks like again, only Rongju having kills on the sides of the Leviathans. The support Nox did opt to go for the double physical defense, so going to be pretty tanky against everyone except for
Zeus,
BMT right now. Yeah, the Zeus, again, the biggest force of damage right now on the Camelot Kings. Already has the double flat pen built into, almost going to be going for probably a Spear of Desolation, just trying to get some of that CDR online. And it looks like Twig is going to be looking to get a little bit aggressive here in the mid lane towards this Pyromancer.
His ward's on that right-hand side by that Pyro, though, as Variety does jump in towards Yoko. Yoko trying to get back to tower range and keep hold of his ultimate if he could, but Variety did good work there to keep the pressure rolling and trade ult for ult. And this opens up a window now for Pyromancer, knowing Camazotz can't be there. But what can Rongju do? They steal it away there, the Atlantis Leviathans. What was it that got it?
That was the thought, though. Shinto charged that one up. Rongju made sure to give the perfect amount of vision. Just that Nox silence saying, hey, you guys cannot use your confirm when you want to. And then just great play by Shinto saying, hey, I've got the most range in the game right now. I'm going to confirm this from downtown.
I'm just going to keep an eye on that tough. Sure, he fell early on, but he's still going to be an impact from range, as you can see there. Now 3-2 on the score lines. A slight 1000k goal lead for the Kings. If we look towards the dual lane, and Zapman is overextended here. Didn't realize Genetics are wrapped around the back. Drop your Sun's Lab, but drop your health bar too. Grayscale should be coming through because Twig is still chasing the block from Rongju, keeps the cats alive, and Rongju nearly did everything he could to keep Zap alive with the shell, but it wasn't good enough. The Kings find another kill.
I mean, that was a Zapman play through and through, trying to invade that purple buff by himself.
No vision.
Surrounded by 3 members of the Kings, and then Rongju just clutching up, eating the ult, making sure he almost gets out. Just Twig able to clean that one up, but you do see the relics down, and now that's going to be an issue for Zap if he does come back. Both relics down, Aegis and Beads have been expended, and he still died.
Well, relics for himself, but also the shell from Rongju, so that was 3 relics, and they still kill Zapman for that one. Kings should have a bit of wiggle room then towards this duo lane to keep the pressure rolling if there's an opportunity to do so now. But they're not running away with this game just yet. It really does feel like we're at 15 minutes. We're still in the farming zone here. No towers down. Just those Gold Fury, Pyromancer to talk about.
Yeah, we've got some time before that Primal Fury is going to be spawning up. Obviously, Netrioid going for the Shred build here. Not building into any crit, probably because itemizing into crit against Hou Yi, not the best because of his passive. So going into that Aussie, possibly a Kin's Rush that we've seen a few times now. Or they're going to be for the Executioner, actually wanting some more penetration. Going to be doing a lot of damage to these tanks. Obviously, Yarkor still has not backed, so we haven't seen him itemize into any form of defense right now. The solo lane for the Leviathans still just having that Blackthorn Hammer into the Transcendence.
I think the fun thing about the start of the league, though, is that you get to see what the pro players really think about itemization in the game. Sure, we've had a couple of months now with the new season kicking in. We've seen some amateur play with the SEC teams. But not everybody's always on track of what their builds are, so a lot of people tuning in today will be very much focused on these builds going, what am I building in the roles I'm playing? Zap, under pressure, remember, no beads, no Aegis, and now no life, as Variety will get credit for the kill, using that teleport here to rotate to that side, but they've left Big Man Ting's exposed in mid lane. A 1-for-1 trade across the map, 2 carries down. And where the action's going to be next is probably the Gold Furies. That Primal is up soon as Genetics rooted in place again. And this CC chain from Shinto and Rongyu paying dividends so far.
Yeah, smart play by Variety, making sure to rotate over while Zap didn't have the relics available. Does have the Indra Scepter doing the shock damage as well, trying to get rid of the Leviathan's ADC before this Primal Fury spawns. But the Leviathans sniff this out, and they get their mid pressure down. Take down BMT, the highest level on the map at the moment, was level 17 above everyone else. So now, still going to be a 4-for-4 at this Gold Fury fight if they want to try to pull.
Credit where it's due, though, to Variety's rotation there with that teleport. I mean, you're up against, you know, the Camelots, which is in a lot of ways more influential in some of these team fights that dive in the back line. But Variety getting there so far ahead with that teleport just allowed them to find those wiggle room windows to get some kills.
But it looks like the Leviathans are going to have the vision here, and they're going to be pulling this Gold Fury. It's burning very quickly. Final Judgment not available.
Not much the next can really do here up against Shinto as well, but he's going to try and make a play at the tail end there with the Gust. Won't come through, though. Leviathans get the Primal Fury and claw back some of that gold that they'd lost earlier on in this game. Still, for me, this is anyone's game in this best of 3.
Oh yeah, it's still pretty even here. Obviously, Variety opting not to rotate over for that Fury while Yarkor did, so the Tier 1 tower probably going to be looking at over in the solo lane. That's the first tower that we're going to see drop this whole game if Variety does get it, so not too much. People are not running to really step out of their lanes too much, just want to get every sort of farm they could on their side of the map, but no one getting too aggressive right now. Finally, the first tower of the game goes down.
Well, I did mention to talk to Leviathans before this game, and they were saying this is probably going to go 2-0 either way. They don't believe it's going to be a 2-1 in any stretch of the imagination. They feel whoever gets game 1 is probably going to snowball that into game 2. So this one is still all to play for at the moment. I'm edging my bets on Kings with how they're looking so far. Although when we get to those Phoenix Sieges, when we get to those engagements 5-on-5 fights, they are still a little bit lackluster in terms of their engagement and very telegraphed in that. Look at this, Leviathans 4 strong towards the mid lane. Twig was trying to wrap around the corner here and meets up with Yarkor. Variety going to be basing there to continue working on his itemization and pressure relieved for the time being.
Yeah, realize that they're just going to be waiting around this Pyromancer respawn almost up here, and the Camelot Kings want to make sure they have their pressure. Even Netrioid has rotated over to try to get this neutral objective, but all things considered, the Leviathans have been playing this style for quite some time where they lose the early game but stay pretty even, and then these late game team fights are really where they shine.
Variety going straight towards Shinto, forcing Leviathans to come back and help him defend, opening the window for the Pyromancer for Kings to be started. But the rest of the Kings aren't too confident on that right now. Instead, they're stepping up to support. Pyro now begins. Rongyu and Yarkor are on the way. Keep an eye on Shinto for secure. Won't be available this time. Out of range as Kings take the Pyromancer.
And it looks like they're not going to be looking for the fight after the fact. The neutral objective is all they really wanted. Just Huntress of Bast used, so still 4 ult strong on the Kings, and on the flip side, Nox threw her ult out as well, trying to peel for the squad, so Rongyu not going to have that available. But no one, as you said, they're not going to really feel confident enough to pull this Fire Giant. Either team right now feeling like they just want to get their farm, hit that level 20 mark, maybe upgrade those starter items before they really want to try to stay fights here. But as I was mentioning, hold to that thought, it looks like Genetics is going to get aggressive.
He is rooted in place, and a lot of pressure coming through, but not enough to bring him down. Tanky enough at this stage with that Thebes and that Kasari, which we've not touched on just yet, as the Leviathans brings that man over to this right-hand side. They don't find anything else, though, just a bit of pressure there on to Genetics. And speaking of Genetics a little bit more, this relic choice of the Frenzy upgraded already. How do you feel about that? Is it that useful?
Oh, it's extremely useful. Yeah, usually you see people going for it in the early game is trying to get pressure, but it looks like the Leviathans are going to be posturing towards this Fire Giant. They recognize Netroid is still in that duo lane, and they're going to go for a pull.
Yeah, but look at that. Netroid's in base right now, so this is a 4v5 at the Fire Giant, and they're bursting it down relatively quick. Variety goes to Shinto, tries to keep him busy from trying to secure the buff, and King steal away the FG. It looks like Twig did his duty, but he'll fall down for the pleasure of it. Still, though, Variety and Genetics walking forward, but they've left Big Man Ting's exposed now. He does have Fire Giant, but they can't do damage to Yarkor at this moment in time. Netroid drops the ultimate down, trying to keep Yarkor out of the fray, and now Netroid versus Yarkor. Yarkor's one hit from death. They will not continue the chase. Instead, what's going on? Tings is just going to be left to deal with this one. The rest of the team heading towards mid lane.
It looks like Yarkor is going to try to escape here. No way. BMT is going to clean that one up.
Look at Variety, though, just on the back line here, trying pushing 3 members of Leviathan's back. What a great little play from the Kings, and it really stems off that FG steal.
Yeah, it seems like they really thought they had the damage to burn that one, as Variety, with the Frostbound Hammer, is just going to be making sure everyone from the Leviathans has to stay back.
Is that legal, do you feel, like Frostbound Hammer on Bologna?
I mean, it's, yeah, you can go for it, obviously.
You're one of those scummers that do that, aren't you?
You're up against the world champs. You better be bringing out all the stops here. And obviously, Variety's doing a ton of auto attack damage, and he's going to be going pretty crazy here. But as we were mentioning, the Leviathans, they really play for this late game team fights. They thought they had the objective burn there, thinking Netroid is not even close. We have the final judgment, but just great play by Twig and Variety, making sure to dive the back line and make sure they couldn't just get all their abilities up on that objective. And now Fire Giant goes their way and they lose the tier 1 tower.
Well, King's going to head back to base and spend some gold. We should be able to have a little look at that Fire Giant steal again and see exactly how that one played out between the two. I believe it was Twig on there. Oh, I didn't see we showed it. Look at that. We didn't get that view. But the production's mean to us today. We don't get to see it anymore. I didn't even know they were showing a replay then.
Well, we know what happened. We saw Variety
was
go
it,
off.
Was it Twig then?
And Twig and Variety, I believe Variety was the one who stole it away. I'm not 100% sure on that, but Twig, yeah, okay. So Twig was able to go in once Variety created all that space. That's exactly what you want your tanks to do during that action. Once the Fire Giant fight starts, you really just need your tanks diving that backline. Bastet, sort of a pseudo tank in the fact that she can jump to the backline and then jump back if she needs to. So just great play out of the dive from the Camelot Kings, making sure the Leviathans could not confirm. Shinto can't really charge up his ultimate with all the CC available.
Yeah, and I think Variety did a good job of just keeping Shinto pressured enough not to be able to do that at that FG. But it just shows how important that FG was, because now the Kings are going to get this Gold Fury, move over to the left-hand side for a tier 2, and the Leviathans are trying to keep track, I guess, in terms of the towers they lose by split pushing. They don't want to take a 5-on-5 just yet, but they might need to, because this left-hand Phoenix could be under threat. And they're diving in using the ultimate here from Genetics. Going to take that left-hand Phoenix very quick. Leviathan's caught with their pants down there.
Yeah, that was a beautiful play by Genetics, saying, hey, we can dive this Phoenix extremely quickly, because right now it looks like the Leviathans are trying to trade tier 2s, but they're not going to expect us to get to this Phoenix that quickly. So now you have the worst Phoenix in the game lost. If you do want to try to defend this Fire Giant, Fire minions are going to be super far away. You have to send someone over there, and every fight you're going to take after that is going to be a 4v5. So for the Leviathans, that's going to be a huge hit, and the siege is not done yet.
So with that, you're going to be looking at maybe Kings trying to make sure they can take that when the waves are coming through on that left-hand side, whereas Leviathans, they want to gather someone back to defend that. But who do you send in that situation, Trelly?
I mean, at this point, you probably have to send Yarkor. He has enough damage to clear the wave quickly and then make it. You have Rongu obviously going for the Lonos mass, so he can't even fight a fire wave right now. His damage is nerfed so much. The only option you have is to send either Zap or Yarkor, and if you send Zap, you don't have any sort of tank shred, so it's going to be very difficult without your ADC to win a 4v5, obviously. So it looks like the siege is going to begin on this mid Phoenix, but they don't have to wait until that fire minion pushes up.
Keep an eye on Genetics here, and also the blinks available for Variety and Twig to look for these engages. Expect Genetics to look for something. That's a telegraph situation there as the ultimate is used. Where are they going to go is the question, though. They're heading towards that right-hand side, looking to split the difference, and there they are. Frenzy Pop looking to burst down the Phoenix, but here come the Leviathans to defend. Rongu under some pressure there, but he'll be fine for now. Variety CC chained in place, but look how tanky he is to survive all that threat from Leviathans. Left-hand Phoenix now pushing in with those fire minions now that that's down. But the Kings did not find the result they were after there.
No, the Fire Giant ticked away just then. They didn't really have that huge power buff anymore. They didn't have that level of sustain. And obviously, once they saw that Shinto was charging that final judgment, they did opt to leave. I thought they would wait until the Fire Minions started breaking the base, but it looks like they wanted to make sure they got the tail end of that Fire Giant buff before that play started. Unfortunately, they were not able to get that Phoenix. But as we mentioned before, those Fire Minion waves are still going to be pushing down left side. Fire Giant's going to be up in about 30 seconds, and after that, someone is going to have to go back, and it's probably going to be Yarkor. You're going to be fighting without a solo laner if that is going to be the case.
There was about a 1k difference between these two teams before that first Fire Giant was taken, and now Camelot Kings have extended their lead to just over 10,000 at this moment in time. So this next Fire Giant is really for Leviathans to try and defend. They've got a good composition for that, though, Trelly. We kept talking about this Toth in mid lane, the long-range potential execute. I guess the biggest question is, can they keep variety away from Shinto to have that window?
I mean, I'm looking at a full build Bologna right now. A Death's Embrace for crazy amounts of sustain, Berserkers and Shoguns, crazy amount of attack speed, a Nemean line if you're going to be boxing Ho-Yi. I don't think anyone can kill Variety right now unless he's just diving way too far. Almost double the damage of anyone on the map, but it looks like those fire minion waves are not pushed out.
Look how quick that FG went down there. There was no chance for Leviathans to even turn around and re-engage. And now they're on the back foot again with a full Fire Giant available for these guys. Twig goes in, gets a good route on Rongyu. Rongyu under a lot of pressure here. He will fall down to the trucker horn of Big Man Tings. Meanwhile, Genetics is dunking on down, bringing Netroid with him as Variety continues through towards Zap, and it's Zap and Panitom against the whole team of the Camelot Kings. Zapman doing his best to buy as much time by falling away from his Phoenix line, but I think the damage has been done here, Trelly. There's only Panitom left alive to try and defend as the Kings march on with a fire minion wave out left towards the Titan.
Yeah, they're not going to need the minions here. Obviously, Variety just disrupted the back line. Captain Twig makes sure to they were not able to get to base there because of this Bastet chasing. So just great play by the Camelot Kings, making sure that the Leviathans could not get back to base after attempting to defend that Fire Giant, which they didn't even show face on.
From our point of view, though, I really felt that it was going to come down to team fights, but we never really had a proper team fight there between these two teams. If anything, the Fire Giant steal was the biggest turnaround in that game that just opened the door for Kings to take control.
Yeah, the Leviathans really thought they had enough pressure there to burn down that Fire Giant and the confirm, but again, Variety and Twig just making sure to disrupt that backline, steal away the Fire Giant, and then the game just fell into their hands.
I guess my question for you then is, do we see Leviathans bounce back in game 2, or is Leviathan's prediction right? Is it going to be a 2-0 for Kings now?
I mean, they definitely have the skill and they have the coaching to just, dial back and fix those mistakes. It's going to be an intense one nonetheless.
Are the world champions about to be defeated in week 1, set 1? We'll find out after this break.
This should be fun. I'm really looking forward to this.
Let's see if this fits me. Perfect!
Not exactly my style, but you can't be too picky when fighting gods.
This will do nicely!
I feel different. I feel powerful.
I came, I saw, I wrecked!
Though we look similar, our attitudes could not be more different.
I look like $1,000,000. You call those wings? Ha! I like!
Hey, what are you staring at? Oh, really? Well, darn.
well, the Kings strike first here in Phase 1. They get a Game 1 win, Mifflin. And I'm going to be honest, they kind of controlled it. There were some moments that were good for the Leviathans there, but a lot of what's going on feels like it just constantly were pulling a little bit more in favor of the Kings. The Leviathans evened it up there a little bit in the middle with a Pyromancer as well as a Primal Fury that goes their way, but outside of those two things, I'm a little more hard-pressed to come up with all of the success they had outside of First Blood.
Oh, man. Yeah, the Leviathans really struggled to find their footing. There was some fight back, as you said, around that mid to late game, like last couple of dances around the Fire Giant. It was only about a 2,000 gold deficit favoring the Camelot Kings, but I think the draft is something I slept on for the Kings, man. I said that I was worried about their ability to engage these fights. I was worried about their ability to apply AoE CC. I'd kind of slept on how big some of these Cernunnos ultimates were going to turn out to be. I'd slept on the fact that Zeus just does a crazy amount of damage. Felt like Big Man Tings was nearly undivable at points in this game. Like, anyone who did have the unfortunate circumstance to close gap on him was met by a Chain Lightning Detonate that did like upwards of 60% of whoever was the unlucky guy to see it.
It was that fun, like, friendly reminder of, oh, yeah, the Kings are really good.
They
It's
are.
been a little
They really
while
are.
since we've gotten to watch them. I guess Worlds, you know, they show up, but, like, getting them all together on land, all in one spot, just feels different for this team. And honestly, you got to talk about the upgrade there. The picks they come in with. The thing that surprised me most, again, Bastet comes in 9th overall, was remarkably one of, like, the top picks during the play-ins and earlier on this year. And so kind of surprising to see it go so low down, and then Twig still has a nuts performance with it.
Wow, I think the shell actually timed out there, so Captain Twig's Bleed does finish off that kill on his man. Just great plays all around. And the Camelot Kings are a team that really have shown now that even with some slightly eclectic picks, even like with the hi-rez or the Cernunnos or to a certain extent the Bologna, they still are very capable of performing at a very high level. And I think the crux of the game plan here for the Kings was to shut down Shinto. How often do you see Shinto start a game at like 0-something? 0-1, 0-2, I believe he might have gone 0-3 to start off the game this time around.
If ever, actually.
Yeah, yeah, he had a 40 KD at Worlds, by the way, just tossing it out there again. But this time it was dives centered around the mid lane, controlling the farm. The macro farm is something the Camelot Kings have always been very dominant at controlling. It felt like Shinto never really got a neutral mid camp going his way. And that all adds up to a slight lead for Big Man Tings, about a half level to a level at all portions of the game. Into the late, he's allowed to apply his damage a lot more easily. And speaking of damage, man, 19,000 for variety. Asterisk, though, because he's Soul Laner.
Asterisk, yeah, like a little bit of that's just bullying and boxing in lane. A lot of that was chasing down people. We saw the highlight there, you know, chasing down Zaptings. I think was able to do a ton on the Zeus. You had kind of highlighted starting things out. I do want to talk about Shinto, though, and not the way that we normally would here, where it's like, all right, let's gas him up, let's dap the boy up. It's something I'm going to take from Aggro, I think you said earlier this year. He's not here, so I feel like this is a good chance to embody him.
You could just have it. It's yours now.
Well, specifically was, you know, the conversation around Thoth and Zeus to a certain extent, which is at some level, despite, you know, the damage capabilities they have, whether they're meta or not, what the items are, at the base level, it's still Thoth. And I think we got to see that this game was, you know, that element of he can do so much for you. Final Judgment's a lot of damage. His range is ridiculous. He can get away usually consistently, but there was enough chase down from the Kings that made it a lot more questionable, and we got to see it, you know, fall pretty much exactly in line. We're picks and bans for game number 2. Kings first pick a second time, and so far are not changing a thing, Mifflin. Yamoja and Artio are the top 2 bans. Khepri, last time this was an Erlong Shin for the Leviathans, and they're going to go ahead and keep that one. So top 4 remaining the same.
Yeah, game as one-sided as the last one is where the onus is really on the losers to figure out what needs to change. How do you limit what's happening there? Because the Kings get away with a lot, and even in first pick decide to ban out their own Zeus this time around. So secret strategies they were talking about. This is what they are holding on to. They're going to keep you guessing. I wonder what it is now. Do they prioritize their mid laner still? I projected that in game 1, but instead it's the Bologna lock-in. Very interesting.
Now, I want to ask you about this because, you know, I just mentioned it with Thoth. I feel like Zeus falls in a very similar category, right? Like, he's got movement speed. You would highlight it, kind of nuts movement speed that he has access to in his kit. Good damage, as we could see. But, again, at a base level, he's still Zeus. So if you do decide to focus him, he can fall apart. This feels like we don't want Shinto to have him, but we don't want him either. The Bologna and specifically Variety's performance, what they're more hanging on. The Kings wanted that back desperately enough.
Yeah, he did a lot of damage. He had a perfectly fine time in lane, had very good totem control as well. So props to Variety, and good job going back towards the Bologna. Bastet picked up for them as well. So put that one back on Twig. You've got another CC core for your team, the ability to finish off some of these kills or even apply damage to some of these guys that can be a little bit safer. I'm imagining we see the Leviathans probably prioritize some safety for their own mid laner. On the other end, though, Leviathans are going to keep the Kings guessing a little bit with this Kleena lock-in. Does have flex potential into multiple roles. Yep. Could go into jungle, could go into the solo. Medusa pretty clearly likely headed for the duo lane, but I would be remiss to say that it doesn't have some flex potential in her own right towards mid. I think it is much more so favoring Zapman, though, on the side lane. So what do the Kings do in response? Will the Leviathans, I don't think we're going to see them pick up much that's going to shine a light on where this Kleena lands. Instead, they go towards their support. So duo lane locked in now for the Leviathans, and it is a high kill pressure lane, man. Kinetic Charge from Atlas does so much damage. The CC lockdown, the slows, going to make it that much easier for Lacerate to find its way home, and you can't sleep on what a Medusa can do throughout the early. But now the Kings in a hard position. What are they going to ban out? Are they going to call the bluff here from Kleena and decide to ban out some junglers? They prioritize the soul lane? It's yet to be seen.
That's going to be fun. Giannis gets banned out here. I'll pick your brain about that. I know you shook your head. You were like, I don't know. Which is, I mean, something that maybe we've seen a few people. I think Baronic whipped it out last week during the kickoff. We'll see whether or not, I guess, that has any more credence to it throughout the rest of the day, because it's not getting played this game. Mifflin, I think this Atlas is another thing to really crack into, because it's not just, oh, can Atlas bring pressure, which you already highlighted. The answer is yes, alongside that Medusa. It's, can Atlas, played by Wrong You, we got to see a little bit of that last week. I feel like his playstyle links up with Atlas really well in terms of providing kills, and I think in this case, I see Bologna and Bastet, maybe necessary for Peel.
Yeah, very aggressive style support as well. I mean, you're able to just get in their face and stay there. You want to be able to channel that ultimate, despite it being a global, most effective at point blank, so you can kind of channel it up, get that defense shred, and then send the damage through. So I am curious to see how Wrong You pilots this one. And again, it's something that I've said a lot. We haven't seen just yet competitively, but I think that Atlas really does have great flex potential into the soul lane just by nature of his scaling. The damage output from Kinetic Charge can do upwards of like 700 if you've got a couple of damage items under your belt. The ultimate with that global presence, it's going to be able to be very strong to send it over towards mid, and his damage scaling is just great on all of his abilities. And you're still benefiting from the large CC core on this team. If this E-set gets locked in,
now
I think it might be Atlas solo.
Really? I was actually going to say it's mid, because they played it last week when we asked Shinto about it. He professed love for this. He said he liked it more with the items.
He does, but yeah, every one of these guys has got flex potential. But let me have my thing, Gordon, all right? I just wanted to be right for a second.
That's a life raft for you. You're declaring this as support now. I'm letting you know Shinto, within it.
All right, well, I poked a hole in your life raft. I don't want it, okay?
Okay.
I'd rather
get locked
sink.
in anyway. But because it's Morgan Le Fay, I still posit that was probably going to be a Shinto pick either way. We'll pocket
we can both be right.
Well, actually, now if they lock in E-set, I look a fool. So realistically, no matter what, she's not here. She's off the board. It's Morgan Le Fay that gets locked in here. Morgan Le Fay kind of faded in and out throughout last year. Like, there was a period of time where it was like, oh, we got to get her first pick. And then she disappeared for a while, and she started showing up again. And you know, this area, the bottom two for a lot of these teams. How do you feel about her mid lane matchup, especially since you don't even know who she's going against yet?
Yeah, so I don't feel anything about the matchup because I don't see it yet.
There's no matchup.
Regarding her just relative strength in the meta, I think she is still very strong, has consistently easy to apply CC, unreactable self-peel with Dragonflight. Also, with a third ability, gives yourself a good boon in movement speed, just the ability to just walk away faster than everybody else. CC immunity, the ultimate, a very safe pick, I think. Now, looking at the draft from the Kings, I think it is likely going to be Chiron in mid, and Chiron is a god that is very aggressive and can very easily close that gap on a Morgan Le Fay, even though she does have CC immunity to avoid the giddy up or even Dragonflight to get him off of him. I don't know. Centaurus is going to make it very hard for Morgan to survive there, and the death immunity in Centaurus able to finish off some of these kills, revive yourself. Very interesting matchup, to say the least. And the Kings have got themselves a draft that is very scary when it comes objective time. Essentially a double hunter, one physical, one magical, matched up with a Fafnir. Haven't seen it built out like this in a little while,
Yeah.
but we've seen what it is capable of, and it is going to shred Pyros and Gold Furies.
And then you factor in Bologna, like, you know, she does swing pretty hard with her abilities, but she's going to swing a couple of auto attackers out there. Bastet, again, mainly ability, but I feel like Fafnir just fits with this comp beautifully. And Miff, you didn't even talk about Sanctified Field. Like, you're talking about the double Hunter plus Fafnir. They got a Sanctified Fields to drop too. It's
well, I knew
nuts on that
Cthulhu was
side.
coming, so
Oh,
like
right.
Descent into Madness, you're
just
not worried
to like
about
chase
it.
him down and make him feel
He's like
uncomfortable.
immune to that.
That does put this Kleena into the jungle. So I think this is maybe I'd have to go back and look, but I believe this is the first time that we've seen Panatom played into the jungle. We've seen it a lot in the solo in the SBL. We've seen it over the last like month or so, getting flexed back between both solo and jungle. Do you like it more here going into the jungle just because they were able to pick up that Cthulhu?
I think that having Kleena in the jungle, maybe not so much because of the Cthulhu, but because of the matchup that you see with Oleron in a lane, is going to be very nice. Kleena has got decent ability to chase him out. You're able to apply that slow from a range, make it a little bit harder for him to navigate the map. Even in Sanctified Field time dilation, you still don't want to walk through that pierced veil. Yeah. So she can lock down. It's essentially going to act as a wall and lock him down a little bit more so. So getting Kleena involved and dealing with this Oleron earlier on, I think, is the main reason we see her slated for the jungle.
Does Sanctified Field work like through the wall? Like if you drop it, I'm assuming it would, right? Drop it over like a rock, and she's in the rock. She's gonna just move slower.
No, you are outside the play field when you're in the rock.
Okay, so you can
think of it like a self-banish.
So depending on like where it gets placed, that could be like a close gap.
Yeah, she could just like use it like a walls and Aegis.
Through, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, Kleena's got like really interesting interactions.
I just thought that was a cool interaction. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. No, why are you apologizing?
I don't know.
Man?
You didn't seem as interested as me.
Well, yeah, because I knew how it worked.
Yeah,
so.
I had to ask. You're right. That's definitely like you can tell the playtime difference. Who spends more time in jungle?
I do.
I look at Ymir's back most of the time. So realistically, you can see where the balance is. The Oleron, I mean, maybe that opens up a bit of counterplay here for the Leviathans. I'm interested to see how this Cthulhu's going to do. Sanctified Fields, huge around the team fights, though. That's what you had highlighted here for the Kings. Cthulhu, is that enough to balance that? I mean, Cthulhu Atlas is the front line. Does that help deal with the pressure the Kings can put on things like that? Objectives.
There's a lot of space control, but dealing with pressure on objective is more so just being in range to take the fight, right? Like, it's not so much, hey, we're going to, like, limit your damage. It's, hey, we're going to be there, so please don't leave it to a coin toss. And if it does come down to a coin toss, unless Oleron's getting, like, a fully channeled first ability that also crits, they're not going to have the Kings that is the same level of secure that the Leviathans are bringing. Pierce the Veil from Kleena or Morgan Le Fay's just straight up damage output should be the best objective secure on the map right now. But something that we had talked about, the objective burn for the Kings, kind of glossed over Eagle's Rally. Bologna's ultimate also going to make it very easy to shred these objectives. I'm talking multi-man Coerce, multi-man Eagle's Rally, double Hunter composition, one physical, one magical. Could even go for both crit if you so choose. Yeah, you are eliminating Fire Giants. You are eliminating anything on the map. You can't leave this team alone with an objective for more than 5 seconds.
If they get and I'm assuming that they will at some point be able to line them up, but if they can line up all of that at once, like with a multi-team Coerce around
and like
FG
a Belt of the Berserker,
I would love to see how fast a Fire Giant can get burned. Like, that feels like it's blink and you miss it, right? If you're not there already for the Leviathans, maybe it completely disappears for you. You've got the Morgan Le Fay, you've got this Medusa we haven't actually talked on too much, presumably going up against the Oleron. Oleron's not really known for his early lane pressure. Medusa kind of is. You had mentioned that with the Atlas being kind of bullying. Is that a good pressure point for them to apply?
Yeah, I think the Leviathans, if they do want to play through the duo lane, or it's going to have to be pre-level 5 before those supports start to rotate out, once Sanctified Field becomes available, he's going to be very safe in this lane. Won't ever really be looking for the 1v1 up against Medusa just because Lacerate and a Viper Shot just does that much damage that quickly. But Acid Spray from a range, now having the anti-heal on it, means that you're not going to be able to sustain as easily with Oleron in lane. So if it becomes a poke war, maybe Medusa has a slight advantage there. Then you got to evaluate the jungle ganks like Bastet into Medusa. Pretty easy to lock him down. Kleena and Oleron, easy, but not as easy.
Well, we'll see what wins, objective pressure or duo lane pressure here for Leviathans and Kings Game 2.
Let's see how this one plays out then, Trelly, because looking at the picks and bans, the first thing for me that stands out, Bologna first pick in Season 9. Is that what I'm seeing here?
I mean, what I saw Variety do last game, I wouldn't be surprised if they do Bologna every game. I mean, he just got so far ahead and was able to disrupt the back line, just pretty much untouchable on this pick. He had such a lead. So yeah, I see the prioritization, and he's going to be going for a similar style build here too.
Well, we saw Big Man Things picking up this Chiron for mid lane now. A lot of talk on the desk about that to see how that would play out. I do think Morgan Le Fay's in a bit of trouble here, because up against Bastet and Chiron in that mid lane, a lot of potential pressure available from those two towards her.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of range from this Chiron pick specifically, but Shinto with the Morgan Le Fay at the Dragonflight going to be a pretty hard self-peel character. It's very difficult to get on top of Morgan Le Fay. She just has, you know, so much avenues to say, hey, get away from me. I'm going to fear you this way. I'm going to slow you. I'm going to run away, get movement speed, that sort of thing. So Shinto probably going to be just staying back under tower, getting his farm as well as he can, as he usually does.
Yeah, a little bit of a difference here in terms of starts between the two. You notice how Panitom's in the mid lane now. Well, he went speed to red alongside Shinto there and allowed them that bit of a window, whereas right-hand side you can see Captain Twig assisted Variety with that blue buff. Rongyu taking his charge at level 1 here to get the pressure rolling in lane. I think the charge is pretty underrated in the early game as first leveled ability, because it clears the wave and it does a ton of damage if you connect.
Yeah, and if you can time it properly, you dash right in, hit the damage, and then you get your pull the gravity well, pulling them back in. You can get some pretty solid early damage, or at least even a relic down or two if you're hitting it properly. But obviously, Genetics and Netrioid not wanting to fight this early game damage from the Atlas, so just staying back until Genetics hits over level 2. Because of that start they did, Netrioid's able to walk into lane level 2 and not have to worry about trying to get the extra farm to get his second ability.
Hammer traded for the attempted pull in there from Rongyu, and Genetics just played around it but cost him both abilities. But you can see here that the Leviathans try to control the sustain of this lane, trying to force a couple of experience points deficit between this dual lane by freezing it a little bit here. They want to scrap in this lane, and you were saying, as we were waiting for this game to go on, you are scared of this dual lane Leviathans have put out here.
Oh, absolutely. Medusa and Atlas, some of the best level 2 fight you can really get, barring maybe like a Bacchus or a Sobek. Atlas just has a lot of engage as Twig. Going to be looking for a little bit of poke here.
Just pressuring away a little bit there on Panitom, making sure they open up these mid camps on the left-hand side. So Camelot Kings get the left-hand side mid camps, whereas Leviathans get that Harpy on the left-hand side in the dual lane as Twig now steps up towards Shinto. And you can just see how far Shinto's got to be back in these engagements. He's very careful about his spacing, and he has to be against this composition.
Yeah, usually with these solo lane cleaners, you see the Soul Eater start because you take a lot of damage when you're inside of the wall. But on a jungle cleaners specifically, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting your ganks out, but not really trying to take too much damage in the wall until you can get some sort of sustain online. Obviously, you can heal up from a camp or two, as that man going to take a good bit of poke.
He really did. Just in the tail end, has to dash back away. Rongyu was patient, though, didn't use his shell there at all. But just a check for Zatman there. Like, you step up like that and a hammer hits your face, you're going to have a bad time. Purple buff started up by the Kings as the Astrolabe is down by Rongyu. Trying to force a bit of a reset there if he can as well by pulling that buff out, but will be secured by the Kings for the time being and be able to get their wave 2. Now Leviathans will go back and get their purple buff as Ting's in mid lane. This is what you expect to see in this matchup, Chiron versus Morgan Le Fay. Chiron trying to dominate and pressure up, but by doing so, he opens this up for Panitom to rip round the back. Remember, Big Man Ting's just used his dash there, so you saw the self-cleanse to avoid some of the extra damage and CC that's going to come through from Panitom.
Yeah, it seemed like Panitom was trying to silence out that giddy up if it was available, but obviously was not. You're just going to be looking at more of a slap fight in this duel lane.
Definitely.
With Netrioid start going for this gilded arrow, as we see a possible solo kill.
Great work from Yarkor there on that right-hand side. Basically, ult used, and Variety was trying to hold his ult there, more funny enough. I do feel like by how far he was positioned forward there, even with his ultimate, Cthulhu at full health would still be able to tower dive, so I guess chose to save the ultimate, will have teleport to get back to lane. But Yark the Shark's back, baby, and he's on his Cthulhu.
Yeah, that Descent into Madness has a massive range, obviously. The Eagles rally probably would have had to juke out at least 2 or 3 shots while he was under tower there, so probably just holding on to that. Did have the teleport available. Now Variety might try to look for an answer back or at least steal away some of this farm because, again, it looks like Yarkor actually didn't pick up a relic until just then, recognized he had the teleport and backed up and picked it up himself. So now teleports are going to be on similar cooldowns. You get the solo kill, and you don't have to lose any of that farm. So Yarkor going to start off big in this solo lane.
I do like that option from solo laners, though. You know, if you're not sure what the other's going to go, you can play rock, paper, scissors a little bit and go, well, I shouldn't need it for the first rotation back to base. You know, if I go back now, maybe I can get TP. Maybe I can look for, you know, something a little bit more damaging. Your Frenzy, something like that.
Yeah, but right now, Yarkor has a full Legion Helm and a Vampiric Shroud. There's no way Variety is ever going to try to box into this. Opting to go for the Berserker Shield start, so not even putting any stock in magical defense against this Cthulhu. Just going for, you know what, I'm going to get some physical defense, I'm going to get some attack speed. So pretty much Cthulhu is going to run this lane for quite some time. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some pressure growing towards these blue buffs.
See a bit of a difference in the supports now as well. Genetic staying for a couple more waves in this dual lane, supporting Netroid in this early game. Whereas you can already see Rongyu starting to make those rotations, leaving Zap on the island he's used to being on, in both, I would say, competitive and ranked at this stage of his life.
Oh yeah, Zap's used to getting focused at any stage in the game. He wants to look for those 1v1s, and if people show up, as we saw last game, he's going to be up way too far anyways, and he's going to try to take those fights. So Zap just going to be getting a little bit of pressure towards his purple buff right now as Genetics is posturing here, but it looks like Panatom might be looking for the rotation over.
Yeah, Genetics got to be a little bit careful here, but will jump away using the underhanded tactics there, away from the pull from Rongyu. And that's really the trade we've seen between these two Guardians so far. Rongyu's trying to force the jump, or at least try and find the pickup, and Genetics are having to react. I guess in one sense, Rongyu is like just... It's keeping that ability on cooldown almost, so Rongyu's not able to use it later in the team fights.
Yeah, forcing your escape as opposed to just your CC ability is always going to be a good trade, but Fafnir with the Draconic Transformation can get a second dash if needed. So right now, Genetics obviously not needing to put too much into his jump at the moment, but I'm curious to see if Panatom is going to opt to upgrade this Jotuns into the Glyph with the healing. Obviously, Jotun's Vigor does give a little bit of extra sustain on this Kalina. It just really depends on if you want to put that much gold into it, as Genetics, once again, trying to steal away these offerings.
He needs one more, and it will give the Obelisk to the side of the Kings. I do remember at the start of the season, it definitely felt that this buff, this Obelisk buff, would go towards either support or a solo laner, those tanky guys that can just be there and in the fray. Genetics has to get away from danger. Netroid was alongside and they're actually going to put the pressure on Panatom, who has to use his beads to escape the clutches there and get back to safety. But the damage is done in favor of the Kings here. Do we see the Obelisk going to junglers these days now then, or is it still Guardian to support you expect to see it?
Early game, usually always a support, as Genetics is going to pick it up, but we saw Twig have it a few times last game. Even Variety was able to pick it up on that teleport over, and then he went and ganked Zapman. So it's sort of like a Discordia passive. Whoever's doing that damage and you want to give them a little buff, you just hand it over to them. Genetics right now with the Dragon and the Indra Scepter, that's going to be a lot of damage. And I don't think Zapman sniffed this out.
He did not, and now Genetics able to wrap around the back. In comes Netroid too, but Netroid has no ultimate for this. The dash from Zapman gets caught by Genetics, followed by the hammer and the beads. Ultimate used to prevent some CC immunity and hope for a bit of luck, but he's in trouble still. He will get back towards Shinto though here, Zap. Can he get enough support? Zapman is slipping the noose right now, and Genetics doesn't want to give this one up, as on the right-hand side we've got a 3-on-2, or make it a 3-on-3. Big Man Ting's late to this fray. Rongyu into his ultimate. Variety leaps away to safety, and Rongyu's one hit from death, but Twig gets annihilated by the combo with Panatom and Yarkor. A kill on the right-hand side in favor of the Leviathans. Kings will not be happy, especially when they drop that one on Zapman.
I gotta say, Yarkor right now opting to go into the double physical defense. There's no sort of magical damage he's threatened by right now. So when you see the Descent into Madness, you see this Legion Helm, Breastplate, Vampiric Shroud Star, there's no one on the map that can kill Cthulhu right now. Yarkor is going to be owning this side of the map. You see the rotation from Tings, but it's a Chiron. It's a physical damage hunter, so he doesn't care about that. Obviously, just being able to just reign supreme over this whole right side of the map right now. I'm not surprised to see the Leviathans putting pressure over here.
Still, though, between the two teams, 2-kill lead for Leviathans, but the goal differential marginally in their favor. This is still anyone's game in game 2, as now Yarkor back to farm it up this right-hand side. I do wonder, though, if does Variety need to see some magical defense eventually in this build? Would you like to see him go some just to deal with, you know, Shinto and Yarkor more in this game?
I would say so. I mean, that Shogun's Kusari is always going to be a good option, but Variety just wanting to really box here, going for that possible Frostbound Hammer, like we saw last game, just being able to W-key as Bologna being so annoying, as we're seeing a little bit of a skirmish here for the Oracles, and they are going to go the way of the Leviathan. So now there's going to be some vision on that Gold Fury. We've already touched on how much objective shred both of these teams have with Tear the Veil from Kalina. Obviously, Viper Shot does so much damage. And then on the flip side, you have Fafnir and 2 ADCs. Obviously, your objective shred is going to be insane.
Oh, well, Zap steps up here very dangerously. No beads there. Does eat a hammer, but there's no follow-up available from Netroid at that time. Rongyu was on a late rotation. And even though they didn't kill Zap on that last little skirmish before this one, they did do a ton of damage to that tier 1 tower on the left-hand side there. Netroid able to hang around as Genetics trying to look towards the red buff, gets pulled back into a bit of danger, but he's tanky enough even at level 7 right now with that Gauntlet of Thebes online to weather a bit of storm and escape back towards his teammates in mid lane.
Yeah, Fafnir having a lot of tank stats at the moment, obviously. Just wanting to be getting very annoying, hitting those hammers where he can. Obviously, looked for the gank on Zap. The beads are still going to be down for 20 seconds. Try to see if he could body block out that last array, but I think Zap was well aware of his presence that time and just held it perfectly. And now, you're right, that tower is getting quite low. And Netroid, again, with that Gilded Arrow, is going to be getting a lot of extra gold in this lane. Any sort of wave that just goes neutrally is going to be going in the favor of this Olron, a magical ADC that really shouldn't be having pressure over a Medusa right now, just judging by their builds. But because of how much genetics has stuck around in this lane, Zap's going to be sitting under that tower still.
Well, Doug, as you can see, putting up the gold per minute on the left-hand side, and you can see it's the carries of the Kings here that are doing a better job of the carries of the Leviathans, but you've still got that Yorkor threat of this Cthulhu now that is farming insanely once again, just under 500, total lie, over 500 GPM a minute, it's a ton of gold. Genetics, though, still paying attention towards Zap in this dual lane. Rongyu now on the rotation to support. Hammer does connect, Zapman doesn't panic, though, as he knows he's got Rongyu in support. Rongyu going to pull Genetics back in, but that's all the tale is she's wrote there. It's just opened up a bit of a window for Leviathans to get their own purple buff.
Well, now we have the Obelisk respawning here. We're going to have to see if Genetics wants to get active and steal away those offerings once again. You do have to give a little bit of your HP every time you steal one, but Genetics really likes this Interceptor and puts a lot of stock into it, so that's why he's hanging on this side of the map. We're going to see it.
Under a lot of pressure here, but the ultimate out from Netroid reduces that away. Obviously, Rongyu did a nice job of pulling him in there. Pressure relieved again, but a couple of ultimates exchanged. And actually goes in favor of the Kings. There's York looking for more pressure onto Variety. He was low on health here, but no panic from Variety yet. Has teleport available, will be able to get back. But you can see this Cthulhu pick is really causing problems for Variety so far.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Gold Fury peel here. We do have the Berserker available, the Belt of the Berserker. They're going to be straying this very quickly, and they're going.
What can Paddington and Rongyu do? Will Paddington be able to steal this one away is the question. They do! And now with that, the Kings have to turn tail, and Genetics is very, very low. He's going to transform and buy some time, but the damage is there as well from Shinto. Whipping over the wall. It's still not enough. Great hammer from Genetics. And he is back towards the tier 1 tower. No one here to support. Will Leviathans dive? Rongyu going to go in, looking for the kill. Needs some support here, Genetics, and gets it. Netroid, a big man, tings round the corner. Will at least return some damage, but Genetics does fall as Leviathans get a Gold Fury and a kill.
You have the absolute greatest shred on the map right now if you're the Camelot Kings. You have this Fafnir buff, almost the Shogun's finish, but still you have the Coerce that's going to make you burn it down so quickly. But what you really need is burst. You don't need burn. Right there, obviously, Tear the Veil, Panatom was able to steal away the Gold Fury, and then Genetics isn't even able to make it out. So that Gold Fury pull that you thought you had, which is so much burn, just doesn't end up getting confirmed. And now you have two big L's on the screen right now. Leviathans are able to take a small lead here. Obviously, Yorkor was ahead in the solo lane, but now you have a lead pretty much everywhere right now.
And on top of that, you just see Zap steal away the purple buff from Camelot King's side of the map. Red buff up soon, and Leviathan's starting to get more control on this left-hand side. Meanwhile, Twig, who started to the right-hand side, has done a perfect pin using the kitty cats to keep Shinto surrounded, and that's the danger for Morgan Le Fay when there's a bastard in the jungle.
You gotta love seeing the cat as Netroid's gonna take some damage here. He's sprinting away.
Oh, he's not gonna get far though. Will drop his ultimate to try and buy some time. A couple of ultimates exhumed there by Leviathans too, but beads down as well as I believe that sprint available there for Netroid that's gonna be taken out of the fray. Good to see sprint back in the meta though. Surprised we're not seeing that on more support, more ADCs over time. As Kings will find a window at the Pyromancer, however, after killing Shinto in mid. So that is a nice little grass back of gold that they lost around that Gold Fury.
Yeah, we've been seeing the beads in the Aegis. We've seen the beads in the Shell, but beads in the Heavenly Sprint, you kind of get this old hasten effect where you can
Season
just chase
1, Season
down.
2. Remember
yeah,
that?
The gas pedal. Yeah, we love this build, and obviously with the Sanctified Field, you're going to be quicker, and everyone else is slower as is. So with the sprint popped inside of the Olron Ultimate, you're pretty much just running around in circles. Just great heads-up play by Netroid, recognizing, hey, Medusa's got to slow, Atlas has got to slow, even Panatom's going to be slowing me. I just want to be sprinting away from all this aggression.
Well, I guess the other thing as well is he's going to be dealing with Cthulhu, because when we get to team fights, Cthulhu's going to look at Netroid and go, that's an Oleron. Nobody else can get him, but I can.
Yep.
And so Netroid's going to go, nope, 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 nope. I'm going to sprint away from that. And Cthulhu, during that ultimate, isn't the most mobile thing in the world, if I'm honest. And an Aegis, what's it going to do? Deal with one rotation of damage more than anything else. The sprint may be more useful to him, but also the rest of his team. We'll see how that plays out, though, as Kings at a deficit here so far. They're the ones that pulled out last Gold Fury, and they're the ones that lost it. And, you know, last time we saw an objective stolen, Leviathans lost the game.
Yep, that is the case, and right now the Leviathans are not going to be letting that one happen again. It seems like Netroid is opting to build into a lot of life still. You have the Ring of Akate, you have the Typhon's Ring, trying to probably hit that Cthulhu and heal up, but look at the Leviathans. Look at how much anti-heal they have built already. You have the Brawler's Beat Stick from Panatom. no Divine Ruin right now. It seems like Shinto's prioritized that cooldown reduction, but you also have the Lacerate, so there's going to be a lot of anti-heal for this double lifesteal Oleron build that Netroid is opting to build into.
I've noticed though, Basta, we mentioned it a little bit, but Basta, Captain Twig sticking to this right-hand side of the map. Not really seen them on the left-hand side too much so far in this game at all. And whereas we've seen Panitom a little bit more to the left-hand side of this, there's more farm on the right though, and I think that's why you see a bit of a level lead here for Captain Twig, but it's opening this door for Leviathans to find windows on the left-hand side. And now when I say that, Panitom now on the right, looking with Yarkor's help, and towards Variety, he'll leap over the wall and blink to get back to safety, but the damage is done as the Tier 1 falls.
Yeah, the damage has been done, and Panitom is still looking to chase here. Is able to go into the wall if he really wants to find Variety, but Variety sniffs this out and is going to hide underneath the Tier 2 tower. Just pushing these waves constantly under tower is really going to take a toll on Variety's gold pool here, but it looks like Captain Twig might be looking in a little bit of destruction here as Rongyu is rounding the corner.
Really feel a difference though between the two teams in these obelisks. So Genetics has been camping that one from Leviathans all set long, it feels like, where Rongyu not really paid attention. Rongyu needs to pay attention now though, as he's under a ton of pressure, surrounded by multiple members of the Kings there. They take him down, did exhume quite a few ultimates though, as a leaping from Genetics towards Shinto will force the beats. Variety wants to continue chase, but after using the ultimate a little bit earlier in that solo lane, won't have it available to continue on. Rongyu for Captain Twig.
It's just way too hard to really survive an Oleron ult right now with no beads available. Obviously, Rongyu still level 11, so can't slot into that Purification beads just yet. Gets stuck in the Sanctified Field and pretty much CC chained with the Dragon Stun as well. So very difficult for a no CC Immune Guardian to live there. But look at this. Camelot Kings are recognizing that they have the numbers advantage. I mean, they were going to try to take this Gold Fury down, but all of the Leviathans are here.
Big difference is ultimates available too. Only Eagles are rallying up for Variety here, whereas Shinto has his Panitom too. Could be a bit of an ask for both teams to really engage on this Oni Fury, but the action on the left-hand side obviously is because the Oni Fury is available at the moment. Sentry Ward down from Leviathans though, just giving full vision of that pit at the moment, so nothing really to speak of there. Tier 1 towers though, it's Leviathans that have lost two, mid lane and the left-hand side. Obviously, Kings lost theirs in the solo, but solo's less of an impact than the one in that mid and the left-hand side as the game goes on.
It looks like we're still seeing the Leviathan's posture towards this Gold Fury. Zap already pinged it out, and it looks like the tanks are just zoning. Only Genetics and Netroid, but it's very low.
What can Genetics do with a hammer, really, to try and steal this away? Not a whole ton, honestly, and the Leviathans will pick the pocket of the Camelot Kings there and find themselves a bit more of a gold lead. This now turns attention to the other side of the map straight away, because the only available neutral objectives are going to be this Fire Giant. It is the right stage of the game to look for one, I would say. A little risky, though. And then, obviously, Pyromancer coming up again shortly.
Yeah, I really like what Captain Twig has done with his build here. I think he recognized pretty much immediately that Yarkor is going to have a lot of physical protection. Already the Legion Helm and the Breastplate could even build into one more, like a Mantle of Discord or something like that last game. So it looks like a Titan's Bane is going to be his item of choice, trying to get as much percent pen as possible. Someone has to shred down this Cthulhu, and you don't have any kin size right now. Look at the mid lane. You have your Chiron, but he's going more of an ability-based build. He has Crusher and Transcendence, going for the fail, not trying to get some crit and cooldown. So no one is going to be really shredding this Cthulhu just yet. So Captain Twig recognizes that and says, guys, I'll get the Titan's Bane. I'll try to help out.
Well, I guess with Twig as well, he does have that bleed on Bastet, which will nullify some of that Legion Helm protections is what you're looking for here. Kings, though, straight towards the Pyromancer. They will secure it before Leviathans can turn around and try and find a window to steal. Now the dance begins of the Fire Giant more so. The big issue is, though, if the Leviathans lose a fight here, they could lose Tier 2 towers. Big gap between that Tier 1 mid and Tier 2 in mid where you have to run back to. So the chase potential from someone like Twig, someone like Variety, is available.
Look at this build that Genetics has opted for here. He has the Shoguns for the attack speed for his whole team. He's got the Belt of the Berserker, and now he has the Bracer. Could be the Bracer of Radiance. Either way, he is trying to shred down these objectives as quickly as possible, but not just the objectives. Shredding down your tanks, your Cthulhus, and the Descent of Madness is basically a big objective that everyone can focus their DPS on right now. This Fafnir is a buffing machine, and at the moment, you have a Chiron who can use it pretty well. Variety on this Bellona can use it really well, and I don't even think I have to explain to you how much Oleron can shred once he gets going.
And that's a big thing here. The Kasari, you know, I think is a very useful item in the right situations. Double Hunters to an extent with the fact of an Oleron, which is very auto-attack focused, just leans into this. So it's going to be even more buffs alongside that Coerce for the team too. War coverage, though, at Gold Fury is in favor of the Kings right now. Yarkor trying to keep eyes around. As you can see, the grouping from Kings. However, the carries are on the left-hand side of the map currently. Red buff coming up and Netro going back to base. Not much to really discuss at that moment. Wards is something that's going to need a little bit more of from the Kings on this right-hand side, no, because Leviathans have control as Genetic stays aggressive in mid.
Yeah, as long as we see these ADCs in left lane, I really don't think we're going to see a Fire Giant pull just yet. Obviously, Pyromancer just went down to the Kings as well, so the only posturing on this side of the map is going to be trying to get those relics down. But look at this. Netroid is sort of posturing over here. They have vision on Zap on that wave still, so they know they're going to have the numbers advantage here shortly if Netroid does opt to head towards this Fire Giant.
Yeah, but Net's going to go back to the back harpies here. He was threading to base earlier, so I say he's got a lot of gold in hand, looking to finish off an item or two. And everybody just scrapping towards the mid lane. 4-on-4 starting to develop, make that 5-on-5 now as the army of Leviathans march forward. Blinking from Yorkor, he looks towards Big Man Tings, forces the disengage immediately and will walk away from the ultimate from Oleron. Still, though, the damage on the backside not enough as Variety jumps on in towards Zapman. Twigs alongside him, the focus on that Medusa, who gets a great shell off from Wrong U to keep him alive. And it's Variety's health bar that diminishes thanks to Shinto. 5-2 and a one-man advantage. I don't think Leviathans can look at FG, though. The health bar of Zap just too low here.
Yeah, they do have the HP if they want to try to heal up here, grouping up, but it looks like they aren't going to. And even the Kings, sniffing out that they might try it, are going to posture towards this. But that was a beautiful blink in by Yarkor, and then he realized we don't really have the damage to kill down these carries, so I'm going to back off. And then Variety, that was his go button. The Descent into Madness is down. I'm going to go in here, but it looks like the Leviathans are going to be baiting this one out, seeing if they could sniff out anyone posting up. But it looks like Zap has started to burn, so they are going to be going for this.
Yeah, Zap did have that Assy, so the sustain in the jungle comes into play. Yarkor on zone duty of Genetics. Panitom trying to zone Netroid away too. Lot of ultimates down on both teams here, so it's really going to be a case of who can get in and steal. Genetics at half health right now. Yarkor still zoning away. Panitom covering the other option. Here comes Twig around the left-hand side. Throws out the kitty, gets a bit of vision thanks to that. Sees the Fire Giant is at half health. Still Shinto, though, positioning up, trying to get these choke points and keep the Camelot Kings trapped. Tings preemptively ults here, tries to seal it away, but Leviathans get the FG with some fantastic zone work.
Yeah, Yarkor making sure that Big Man Tings couldn't even get any vision on that objective, was kind of just firing off those Centaur shots blindly. Maybe if one of them happens to clip the FG, you get lucky, but with no sort of vision, it's going to be a very rough steal. So obviously BMT sends out the ults, and Yarkor just says, no one's getting even close. Now the Leviathans have their Fire Giant. They're not going to let this one get stolen away like last game, playing that very smart, and they're going to start to trickle down these towers. Obviously, the tier 1 and right is already gone, but besides that, there is a lot of gold on the map for the Leviathans to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, last game we saw there was a 1k differential between the two when the FG falls, and the next minute it's a 10k lead. Can Leviathans do the same thing? And mid and left-hand side are definitely going to be the options here. Zapman getting aggressive in the jungle, just trying to clear that red buff area, see if it's still available. We'll default back towards this Gold Fury, where I don't expect to see Kings contest at this time. Interesting fight, though. With big skirmish in mid, Cthulhu goes in, forces a couple of relics, defensive ultimates. Then Camelot Kings re-engage, don't find one kill that they were after, forces an FG. Very interesting tale of affairs of how both teams are playing this one out.
Yeah, it seemed like they really thought they could kill Netroid there, and he didn't really have too much damage. Obviously, the percentage pen was just not there. We have seen him now optimized into that Demonic Ring, so the Demonic Grip going to be giving a lot more protection shred onto Yarkor. Looking at his build, he already had the Bulwark of Hope and the Void Stone, so maybe if he had that option of penetration online earlier, they could have shredded down that Cthulhu quickly, but now, realizing how little damage he was even able to do there, they're going to trade that one up, as Genetics might be in some trouble here.
Still is that Dragon, has his ultimate available, trying to hold on to it to the best of his ability. Right-hand side, Netroid does get that tier 2 tower. All the while, Zap got that tier 1 and is now working on a tier 2. Some mistakes here from the Kings, in my opinion, in terms of their defense. They were doing great at first, but now they just lost a tier 1 and 2 tier 2s in a row based off the little skirmish in mid, because 2 people still on that right-hand side.
Yeah, it seemed like they were trying to set up a little ambush there on the Panatom. They did get the beads and one of the ultimates. There's 2 charges, so that's going to be off cooldown pretty easily.
Not the easiest one to do on Cleaner, though, is it? Because you can just jump in a wall if she gets in danger.
Yeah, they were trying to see if maybe they could catch her out. Obviously, the beads, that is a small win here, as Zap posts up way too far, and he's going to have to get the juke shoes out.
Yeah, well, he avoided most of the damage from Big Man Tings, but he won't avoid the damage out from Twig, and the ultimate will not buy him enough time. Twig finds a nice little kill. That'll relieve some pressure here of Leviathans looking to use the tail end of this FG to push for a Phoenix.
I mean, why was Zap even up that far? Obviously, he wanted the tier 2 tower, but your team's got a lead. You really don't have to be that far up on the map.
Are you calling out a 3-time world champion on your first cast of SPL, sir?
I think that it was not
Good
a hot,
for you.
It was not a hot take
right, it
to
wasn't.
tell him not to be that far up without his team. So, unfortunately for the Leviathans, are not going to have their ADC. Probably didn't even want to go for that Phoenix Siege just yet. Feeling more comfortable is getting the gold, backing, spending, getting some items, and then they're going to go for this tower.
Yeah,
here.
look at this, though. King's now able to step up with this man advantage towards mid against an FG-ridden Leviathans. But with 4 members here of Leviathans all in a group, they're going to think better of it. The Pyromancer is calling to them, though. And they should be able to turn this down before Leviathans get in here. Blink not available for Yorkor here to close the gap. So Pyromancer goes their way, and that's kind of extra punishment for Zapman's death on that left-hand side. But Variety could be under a bit of pressure here. Has his ultimate, has to use it to get back towards his teammates.
Yeah, the Eagles rally is going to be down now. Obviously, the tier 2 tower in right is still on the board for the Leviathans if they do want to take it. And Yorkor dashing in, they definitely want to take this here. Going to get the giddy up out of big man Tings, and they are going to start their siege.
Yeah, I think Kings are just going to try and slow them down if they can. Remember, Variety did just use Eagles Rally, so that wouldn't be available for this fight. And Leviathans with a minion wave just going to zone them away using Yorkor here. As Zap now back in the fray. Do you go for a Phoenix or do you settle for a Fire Giant here if you're the Leviathans?
No, absolutely not. You lost your Fire Giant on Zap, man. Your Medusa is not going to be as much as effective without that Fire Giant buff, so I don't think they're going to do it. But Zap, you got to know they're behind you, right? This is the second time.
Well, he's got no beads and Aegis this time, so Zap's just going to watch his positioning again as Janaix did walk up there, has that obelisk little scroll around his waist, or rather floating in the air, to keep track and get that extra free damage off that's available for it. It's so good, that item. As a support, I'm just stood there doing damage. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, you got to love it. Obviously, right now, looking at these tanks, Variety has still not upgraded his starter. So no Death's Embrace, no crazy amounts of sustain. But look at Yorkor. Got the Divine Ruin, has the Shroud online. He is going to be the Blood-Soaked Shroud specifically. He is so tanky, has a great amount of healing as well. This Cthulhu still has not fallen. He's such a big target for double ADC. You'd think they'd be able to shred him, but they just haven't been able to match the amount of penetration you need to shred through a pick like this. I mean, Yorkor is feeling unstoppable at the moment.
Yorkor going to get hit by the hammer, immediately uses his ultimate, realizing he's being collapsed on by multiple members of the Kings. And look at that health bar shred down, though. We said he's tanky. That's a ton of damage. Janaix preemptively ulting here, looking to maybe re-engage onto the backline and present a bit of a threat. This could be a rush of the Kings to go for FG here with that ultimate being used by Fafnir as Variety goes to the backline, looks at Panitom and gets the beads down. Still, though, Leviathans are here in numbers as the FG now started up.
We still have Shinto's ultimate available. That's going to be a lot of range. Petrify is also down, but it looks like he is going to use
double knock-up from the FG caused so many problems, and Shinto going to get himself a double kill. Now left in no man's land is big man Tings, who falls to Yorkor, and Leviathans are routing the boys of the Kings as now the detransformation from Janaix falls off. They don't even care about an FG right now. I like this play. Go for the Phoenix first of all. Can they end off this? I'm 50-50.
I think they're going for the end off this. It's just Captain Twig who's going to try to stop them here. They still have Panatom's ult available. These Veils are going to be so much damage. Twig did get a pot here. He's going to try to stall them as best but he's gone.
What can he do in that situation? Down he goes as soon as the knockup comes through from the Dragonfly Shinto, and now the Titan does fall. Leviathans in one team fight around an FG where it was... Funny enough, it was Yorkor that was the one getting picked there in that little skirmish. Turns into Leviathans grouping up and going, yo, we can roll them now.
Yeah, it turns out when you put all of your damage into a tanky solo laner who only takes about 40% of his HP, the carries are able to shine. Shinto still had the ult available, consumes the power, gets a double kill. Zap hits a huge Petrify off the FG knockup. I mean, you have to be looking at these carries or else they're able to free cast.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it was the FG knockup that came through or was it Cthulhu's knockup. One of the two definitely made a big impact there in terms of that fight, and it turned the tail of it immediately in favor of Leviathans. We're 1-1. We're tied up. Who wins? We'll find out after the break.
jar that I'll take it too far. Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. Like a fish on land. Must be hell, no more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. I was getting lost in the quicksand. Pink clouds eating their way into my head. On and on until I bled. Superstitious, kind of vicious. Oh, knock, knock on wood. I was getting lost. And before I understood, I was deep, deep down on the bottom of a well. Seagrass was all I found. I know alternative hell, no more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. But I'm deep, deep down on the bottom of a well. I don't belong, can't you tell? This place must be hell. No more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land.
No wait for a 3-game set this year. Both Season 7, Season 8 took a little while for us to get in and finally get our 3 games. This time we're treated to it right off the bat. Leviathans tie things up this time around. I got Mifflin, as you saw, kind of stuck.
They told me to stop touching the desk, so I'm just going to hover hand.
Just hover hand? Okay, I'm going to keep touching the desk.
Why are you allowed to?
Because I haven't been told not to.
Yeah, I guess I did break one of these.
You did. I shouldn't laugh about it. It probably wasn't too funny for other people, but to me it was. because then the next set I was told, hey, don't like lean too heavily on it because Myth just broke one.
Okay, well,
This
I'm
was
not
last
that
year.
heavy.
This was last year, by the way, guys. So this is not like news. Either way, so Hardcore kicks things off pretty early on with the Cthulhu. I don't think I've seen this happen with the Cthulhu, so this one was kind of new for me. At level 5, able to get a solo kill, and then it was kind of the Shinto show.
Yeah, a lot of damage output, but despite the Leviathans getting off to massive kill advantages throughout the duration of this game, I think at 1 point, 6-2, going up 2 Gold Furies to 0, no neutral objectives of the Camelot Kings, the gold lead throughout the early remained largely even. It just goes to show that what everyone's been saying about the Camelot Kings' ability to farm up in the macro and how strong they are at that portion of the game is true. But at the end of the day, having gold and experience is only going to do so much if you're not able to quite win out in some of these team fights. And if Shinto's playing like he was, you're probably not going to win too many of those team fights. He was dealing so much damage from downtown, finding multi-man CCs, getting great ultimates, chasing out. How often is Morgan Le Fay the brunt of your front line? Because look at this clip. It's just Shinto.
He's chasing genetics down. Like it was his decision. Panatom kind of scooped that one away from him. Otherwise, could have been a triple kill. 4-1 there for Shinto, 3-0 for Hardcore, 2-0 for Panatom, and then the nice slash of 1-1-6 or 0-1-8 for Zap and Rungyu, respectively. So doing pretty well for the Leviathans, balancing things out from game to game. And Mifflin, I feel like, at least what we got to see, again, kind of similar pathways. I think the Kings pulled a much larger lead in their game 1 when they were able to get there. But, you know, early on, the Leviathans keep it kind of close here. Eventually, the Leviathans get a lead. But like you said, the farm game from the Kings is just impeccable and keeps them in this contest for a while, despite the team fights not going their way. And that just makes things even spicier for game number 3 because it's been even for a lot of these.
Yeah, man. Look, the Leviathans in the pregame interview essentially say, we thought the Camelot Kings were the second best team at Worlds. Yeah. It's starting to seem that way. This is a neck-and-neck set because I'll be completely honest with you, Gore. I didn't think I was going to see the Leviathans drop a game in, like, all of Phase 1. I thought it was going to be a long time before anyone was able to match up against the reigning world champions.
Especially with how well, and maybe it is just specifically how dominant they were during the finals. Maybe one of the most dominant finals performances that we've seen in, I think, in SMITE.
I thought it was like an energy year. You know, like that's what I was really gearing up for.
And I remember, I think we were even having a discussion where we're like, I need to go back and watch the, what was it, NRG Enemy? Because, like, I don't remember how dominant. I know it was dominant. I know it was a 3-0. I remember watching it live. But I can't remember if it was more or less dominant, or maybe equal dominant to what the Leviathans did up against the Titans.
Not equal.
Yeah, no, it was the exact same dominance. No. Yeah, maybe not. We'll figure that out. Daji, Ardio, and Yamoja, you'll maybe guess this. Back to game number 1 bans for the Kings. They locked in Zeus first pick when this was their choice of ban. So we'll see whether the Leviathans try to take that one away from them. It is the Khepri and the Erlang Shin. This has been the same so far each time for the Leviathans. The third has always been the Tiamat. So we'll see whether or not she remains all the way up here. And it's going to be the Bastet, so respect thrown over towards Captain Twig.
And it will be the Zeus lock-in yet again. The Kings had to ban this one away from themselves in game 2, and, well, they didn't decide to do that this time around. So the core of their damage, that incredibly hard-to-dive god that is Zeus, not hard to dive in that it's not difficult to close gap on him, even though he does have a very large stem to his own personal movement speed. It's hard to want to close gap on him because of the raw damage output that he brings, the space control around these neutral objectives with the Lightning Storm, all incredibly potent. So I want to see how the Leviathans shift up their own picks to deal with this Zeus. Do they go for maybe some more ranged engage, things like the Bastet that has been banned out, where you can CC from downtown and try and set up, or are you going to go a little bit more so down that dive tree? As of now, seems to be just generally standard from the Leviathans. Kleina and Medusa locked in.
I was going to say, what if instead of changing up their picks, they say, hey, well, you know what, we were pretty good in game 2. How about we just pick them back again?
Run back.
and it gives you, I mean, you had mentioned this, but like Medusa, maybe not as much flexibility. We've seen her in mid sometimes, and well, now with Tiamat, that this conversation might as well just be shot down, but was somewhat flexible and could
your gumption to keep
in
going
that
with
conversation. Kleina is the one that I was going to hang the hat on, and that is strictly because she is the one still who could be solo. This could be a hardcore pick, but we did see go to Panatom last time, even though it was first pick. So it has a lot more flexible potential for them in the top 3.
It does. I like Kleena in the jungle into Zeus particularly because she has got great damage output from a range. Very easy for her to kind of weave in, throw out the Pierced Veil, back up, trying to avoid that chain lightning off the shield, and then do it all over again, or just do it while you're straight up intangible inside of a wall. Pretty difficult for Zeus to deal with that as he does not have a traditional dash or leap. Means that if you put that Pierced Veil behind him, he's either going to wait it out or he's going to get slowed and take a lot of damage in turn. So I am leaning a little bit more so towards putting the cleanup back into Panatom's hands in the jungle. And it seems like the Kings tend to agree because they've decided to ban out a solo laner.
Banning out Cthulhu, which with Kernanos on the board already, and Zeus, I don't think they're going back necessarily to the Yola run, which means it's not necessarily a, hey, we don't want you to counter our Sanctified Fields. This is a, hey, Hardcore, you're too good at this god. I don't want you to play it.
You soloed my guy at level 5. Like, don't do it again.
So please just leave us alone. Horus and Fafnir are the bans on the other side. Horus, game 1, I think very potent in what Genetics was able to provide. Game 2, Fafnir, even though maybe it didn't get to shine as much, wasn't necessarily a bad pick for them either. So that's going to control the duo lane a little bit. What do you think, and it pairs well with like a Kernanos, like, you know, like a fine wine, and you have to pick the right cheese. What goes well with a Kernanos?
I think that with CERN, I would like something that can match up wave clear a little bit because Bramble Blast, although pretty strong and has received a buff to be a cripple, doesn't really clear out the waves consistently. And you really want to have wave pressure against something like a Medusa who, given any space, can get aggressive very easily. So I was going to say something like the E-Sets, the Yamojas, even the Ymirs, even the Bacchus to a certain extent, who could just clear out those waves for you, is going to go a very long way. An E-Set locked in, that is probably for support. I think that does a lot for you. But it's something we talked about in the past. You're not maxing Wing Gust, you're not maxing Spirit Ball, you're generally maxing the Dispel Magic, which is going to help your fight a lot. It's essentially going to be a silent slow that is also a Geb shield for your CERN. But it's not going to be all that wave clear. But with that additional bit of fight, it's going to dissuade the Medusa from dashing in. It's going to dissuade the Atlas. Going to make it very difficult for the Atlas to channel that second ability to pull in. We might see him throw out the Astrolabe first and then use it that way just to avoid the Dispel Magic.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to watch. Just, I mean, a clean silence on ESET makes it difficult to play into. And like I'm specifically watching that 2 matchup, right? Being able to gravity pull people in, pick them up, hold them around, you know, let Zap just kind of box them while they're held in place or thrown back. Makes life easy for the Leviathans, but this ESET's going to make life a little bit harder. They have a relatively squishy team right now, though. Zeus, Kernanos, ESET. Not necessarily known for their tanky capabilities. Bakasura.
Yeah.
That's new.
It's interesting, right? I mean, you've got good cripple targets, Medusa, Kleena, Atlas, all guys that are going to be very hard to deal with that Regurgitate. I mean, he drops it on them. They essentially just have to walk out on their mortal feet, which is not exactly the best situation. ESET matched up with them. That lockdown in an area with the silence going to apply a slow even further. But Bakasura is a god that is very reminiscent of Erlong Shen in that from ahead, he is going to dominate. He's going to sit on you, and it feels like there's nearly nothing you could do as far as counterplay is concerned. But if you fall behind on Bakasura, you are benefiting from having a traditional leap, so you can still get slightly involved, whereas Erlong Shen has a dash, so he's putting himself in danger a little bit more so, but you still have to close gap. You still have to get in that melee range. You don't have like a traditional damage ability unless you count the leap. And if you're using takedown to jump in, you just lost all your safety. Bakasura, that's a risky pick.
I mean, it makes sense. You know, Great Devour, Feast or Famine in game, right? He's either eating well or he's not eating at all. I guess we'll get to see whether or not that ends up happening here. We do get this Cabrakan, which feels like a solo lane hardcore. You know, we don't. I think we saw a lot of Cabrakan support last year more than anything, and then jungle earlier on. How do you feel about hardcore taking this over there to go up against the Bellona?
I'm not 100% convinced that it is Cabrakan in solo, just because Kleena is there as well, and Cabrakan jungle has been
good point.
A little bit more prominent. Against Bellona, I think for this draft, I would probably put Cabrakan in the jungle because he's able to limit Bakasura pretty easily. The stun from the second ability going to be very good at just stopping Bakasura from using that ultimate fully.
Yeah.
But up against Bellona, well, might as well talk about it in case it does happen. Stops you from using Bludgeon. You're not fully channeling that. It's probably going to make you max out that first or third ability, the Scourge, more likely, first. But yeah, look, this Bakasura has completely stopped me.
It broke your brain.
Yeah,
I can see
just,
the sparks.
I'm just trying to figure out what the game plan is for this composition for the Kings if they fall behind. Obviously, they're not planning on falling behind, but Bakasura is just so dangerous a pick, and you're lacking so much in traditional frontline that you need it to carry its weight. I'm concerned.
It's just, I mean, just what you said, right? Just don't fall behind. It's that easy. Yeah, just win the game. Just simply do better.
That is why I was competitive. You're right.
Bakasura will win. Yeah, we'll figure out, I guess, whether or not this is going to be able to keep up. It's feast or famine for the Baka. Let's find out how it does in game number 3.
Well, in the opening series of the Season 9 season, we're going to go to a Game 3 straight away. No 2-0s this week, guaranteed. How does this one play out between... Well, can't be. We're in 1-1 now, Mifflin. For goodness sake, it's not that hard to work out. Here we go, though, into game. And honestly, the last 2 games, Trelly, really came down to like a Gold Fury, a Fire Giant, and the game opened up and one team took the lead. This could be a similar tale, but it really is going to come down to where these gods go, and it is going to be your core on the Cabrakan in solo.
Yeah, we have the Cabrakan solo, but my eyes immediately have to go to Captain Twig on this Bakasura. They touched on it on the desk. This is a very all-or-nothing pick. You're going in with that Regurgitate, trying to get your minions out and just do as much shred damage as possible, and then after that, you don't really have too much to assist with, so this is a very get early and continue to carry pick, or you could fall behind pretty great. So Twig is going to have to be, I mean, just picture perfect on this pick.
Well, we've definitely seen Twig in the first 2 games, playing from order side on both of those, now this third one too. Stick to the right-hand side of the map, the solo side of the map. There is a lot more farm over there, in my opinion. There's like less contested too. And with someone like Bakasura, you do have that ability to maybe steal away more farm. But what does he do when it comes to team fights? And I think for me, just thinking about Atlas, because I've played a bit of him personally, he's good at probably shutting down Atlas because there's not a whole lot of escapability outside of that dash available. Atlas can be a sitting duck and will cause some problems there. But the rest of the composition, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays.
Yeah, I mean, Yarkor does have the slow immunity as well, so the ganks in solo lane are not going to be the best unless Variety is able to just get super far ahead. This time is opting to go for that Shogun's Kusari Tier 1 start, so he will have a bit of magical defense against this Cabrakan, because last game against the Cthulhu, he did not opt to get it, and he got soloed at level 5.
And obviously we've seen the duel in there, Kurdanos and Iset up against Rongu and Zapman on the Atlas and Medusa. Last game you said, you know, obviously Atlas, Medusa, great composition in lane. How do you feel about the Kurdanos and the Isis up against this? I'm going to say Isis about 15 times
okay, that's all right.
I'm too old to update my name, I'll be honest.
I understand. The ESET brings a fair bit of pressure as well, but right now it's just pretty much a clear difference, right? ESET, if you can get that full wind gust off, it's going to be helping clear the wave so quickly, and then Cernanos just has so much damage as well, so it's just going to be like a lot of DPS in that lane, so they're going to have to be watching their back for the Spear Balls, but besides that, I don't think we're going to see too much action in this lane.
Well, over in the solo lane, expect to see this little scrap fest, but Yarkor's mana bar a little bit lower there. Has to be aware of the bludgeon damage coming through too. And as the Desk was talking about, we'll see what Variety ends up leveling up here, because obviously bludgeon has a bit of a wind up there. If Variety plays around the cooldowns of Yarkor, he could get it off, but for the most part, Yarkor will be looking to stun that out and reduce the amount of overall damage Bellona could do. So normally, you see a bit more of the Scourge here.
Yeah, the Scourge is going to help heal up in lane as well. Obviously, recognizing that Phantom came over for that Toad Maku, but just going to be out clearing the Cabrakan right now. The builds with that Cleave Auto Variety will have the pressure in the lane, at least early. You can't really sit in the Tremors for too long. Early game on this Cabrakan solo, obviously, so the clear is going to be going the way of Bellona for at least a little bit, as we do see Twig rotate over for this blue buff as well.
Rongu looking to be a bit cheeky here, trying to get some damage out and steal away that purple buff. Not to be the case this time round, though, as now you can see both Kings have one wrapped around their waist. Zapman freezing the wave, though, now dinging level 4 as well. So he will have a slight lead over Netroid at this moment. Both junglers, though, back towards the middle lane now as the mid laners start to return to base, and Big Man Tings gets back and picks up the Enchanted Spear, more than likely that Divine Ruin we've seen so much of.
Yeah, we do see Twig tick over to level 5, though. I would love to see where he wants to get active on this map. Obviously, again, this Bakasura wants to get active, find some early ganks, maybe specifically in the duo lane. A lot of cripples to interrupt the dashes over there from Rongu and Zapman on the Medusa and Atlas, respectively. So that really seems like the best kill potential here as Variety to use the Eagles Rally, tries to get some damage off on Yarkor.
Yeah, I like the pressure he's putting on Yarkor, though. You can see he's only level 5, uses that Eagles Rally, and the the teleport already used by Yarkor in this matchup already means that there's a bit of a window here. Variety can keep poking him down, reduce those health potions, can find a bit of a lead there and develop that by getting some tower pressure going as well.
Yeah, Yarkor is not going to be able to come back the lane. Once this HP goes down, obviously it's going to stick. Only 2 more ticks on the Chalice, 1 more tick now. So all that poke, when you still have your teleport available, you can pretty much send it out freely. However, the Eagles rally being down, maybe Panatom wants to look over there, but he's not looking over there at the moment. He's looking more towards mid lane, where BMT is looking towards those mid camps, and Twig is just going to keep farming up.
No surprise we've not seen a kill just yet, though. It's going to be a farm fest between the two, and that doesn't really shock me. Coming into this set, obviously Leviathans, World Champions and Kings. A lot of people disappointed with their performance in the World Championships, going down in the semi-finals to Leviathans there. So it's a chance for them to get a bit of redemption in this series too. And it wouldn't be surprising that, you know, even Zap in the pre-interview before this was mentioning he felt Kings were probably the second best team at Worlds after themselves. So this one going to be a close battle between the two.
Yeah, ready to start the season off with a bang. I don't think anyone really wants to lose a 2-1 right now, so both of them probably not going to be posting out too much, just really waiting for those neutral objectives, maybe waiting for those Fire Giants, those Gold Furies, things like that. Not trying to get too aggressive too early, as this time Twig rotates over for the Totem of Ku, not looking to look for any sort of ganks or wasting any ultimates, just getting the farm as much as they really can right now, as Panatom is looking over at the red buff. Not really going to look how far back the duo lane is. I mean, right now, Netrioid and Genetics are sitting pretty much at their tower line. They're not going to be susceptible themselves to any sort of ganks.
Well, if you're just tuning in today, we've still got one more set to go after this one too. The Olympus Bolts will take on the Oni Warriors later today. And the Warriors have to battle in through to qualify back to the SBL. Have a lot to prove here, as well as the Bolts, in fairness. You know, their World's performance wasn't the greatest. They've stuck together again. Both these teams have stuck together. A lot to prove in that second set of the day, too.
Yeah, I would say right now, if you're not the Leviathans, if you're not the world champions, you are not happy with how your last season went. So you better be looking to try to prove yourself and just at least look for some action here. But it does look like there might be finally some aggression here. Twig is going to go for the Regurgitate.
And he does find it on towards Panatom, who's taking a ton of poke, but at the same time, he will survive. At the same time, you did see Rongyu there trying to wrap around the back of that Zeus in mid lane, but Genetics was on scene. Pressure relieved, though. Ultimates used by both the junglers, and no relics consumed at this point in time. Back to the farm off we go.
Yeah, it looks like if Twig did opt to go for a more damaging first item, there could have been some trouble there, as Genetics might be trying to
good silence. And now Zap could be a bit trapped here. Will hold his dash to avoid Genetics trying to do the body blocks there, is what you saw more than anything else. And fall back towards lane. No real damage to speak of, but now Panatom rotating in. There is a ward down, so the Kings will sense this danger. And on top of that, Panatom only has one ultimate available at the moment after using one in the jungle. He's basically wasting a bit of time here, and King's doing a good job of kind of buying time by pretending they don't even know he's there.
Yeah, they're just going to make sure that Panatom wastes as much time as possible. There's no farm to be had right there. Obviously, the Harpies are already down, so Panatom is just going to be sitting there where Captain Twig is on the other side of the map farming. But look at this. When your jungle's not getting their back camp, Shinto is there, so he's going to take those back camps away. Just make sure to keep that farm going, make sure the respawn is coming through. Shinto's even going to eat this blue buff. Yep, Tiamat, actually the only character in the game that is able to hold 2 buffs at once. So now has that red buff, has that blue buff, a little bit more mana sustain and cooldown, but I don't even think he let Yarkor get the last hit there. So he just stole the XP from his jungle and his solo.
I mean, when you shoot to a mid lane, you know, you're just like, you know, I'm going to take what I want. I'm big and important in the mid lane. You guys can just, you know, famine for the rest of it. Big Man Tings, though, same can be said. He's level 10 at this point in time. Both these teams do give a lot of farm, I feel like, to their mid laners. A lot more like individual solo lanes in that mid. They don't share as much experience with their supports, and you can really feel the difference of the level discrepancy now. Silence on Zap does connect. Bit of poke damage out from the Brambles as well. But all the while, the Leviathans were just behind him if he needed the support there. So pressure relieved, and Genetics still on this left-hand side with Twig hanging around here. There may be a play towards duo lane.
Looking at Genetics right now, that's going to be the big go button for me. This Circle of Protection, this huge confirm ultimate on the Gold Fury. They've tried it a few times. The Camelot Kings have gotten the sense that they have vision on this Gold Fury and they can just burn it down quickly. This time, they have arguably one of the best confirms on the map. Still some decent interrupt on the Leviathans. Petrify, for example, if you get a big stun, your DPS sort of just stops in that regard. So having to make sure they're at least aware of Zapman's positioning on this map. But they have a solid lead here. Zap at least a level up on Netrioid. Just a small bit, but it's going to go a long way.
Well, Twig finds Panatom in the jungle again, and last time he's dueled out, it was a couple of ultimates exchanged, not to be said this time round. And talk a bit more about the Hunter too. We've seen this Crusher once again. Like we saw it at the end of last year a little bit. Did take some nerfs in terms of the attack speed it gives you, but it still seems that the Hunters want to go towards that.
Yeah, right now, hold that thought.
Wrong, you under a lot of pressure as the Zeus ult drops down, and where's the Trucker Horn? It should be needed, or already consumed, I should say. Wrong, you will escape with the barest amount of health at the tail end of that. But the health bars of the Kings are a little bit better, although they did use a lot of ultimates there. There could be a window for the Gold Fury, and Leviathans recognize that. Zap and Panitam here. Genetics stepping up, looks for the silence and Zapman, but split the difference. As on the left-hand side, you see Netro getting aggressive on Panitam. Good damage out from the Kings, but they don't find anything off the back of that.
Did you call the Zeus detonate Trucker Horn?
Yeah.
I got it right away, but I've never heard it. No, I get that.
I thought you used to say that all the time with the Trucker Horn. Yeah.
I guess I just haven't seen
You just haven't been listening to Cass over the years, Charlie. Disappointed.
I haven't seen that much competitive Zeus. I mean, right when you said it, I understood the reference, but I had never heard that before.
Oh, yeah, it was a classic F-dot, that. Shout out to him. We're on the Rocket League scene. Now, red buff, though, taken down by Shinto. Gold Fury still available. And the ward coverage is one thing I can note on the mini-map at the moment. Definitely leaning a little bit better inside of Leviathans. They're really keeping an eye on that right-hand side, by the way, that choke point from mid lane towards the right-hand side of the map, because I've seen Twig dancing around there a couple of times. We saw Shinto picked last game when he was playing that Morgan Le Fay against the Bastet in the same sort of channel. So Leviathans are aware of it, but Leviathans are aware of something else right now. This Gold Fury was left unattended by the Camelot Kings, and a great little strip away by the Leviathans there. Genetics turns up on scene a little bit too late. And he really wants to try and make something happen, I want to say, by being this far forward, trying to return the damage of losing that Gold Fury. But they won't find it. Instead, it'll just be that Greater Scorpion on the right-hand side.
Yeah, great plays by Twig, just recognizing that, hey, that Gold Fury goes down. A lot of farm on the left side of the map is gone, so I'm going to look to invade and then put my attention towards this Pyromancer. That's the other objective on the map. Not worth quite as much, but trying to get a little return gold is what the Camelot Kings are looking for there. I was just going to touch on the fact there's a lot of power spikes right now on the board for the Camelot Kings. Twig just got Stone Cutting Sword. Finally some damage in this build. Obsidian Shard for BMT, trying to prioritize percentage pen over this double flat pen build that we've seen. And right as you see these items come through, the Leviathan's like, hey, you guys are all gone. We're going to get Gold Fury.
Yeah, and the Gold Fury's down, the Pyro's down, so the neutral objectives are really off the table. So those power spikes won't be as useful as you may have once seen. Zap, though, working towards what I expect is probably an execution of the chins we've seen a lot of as well. Kind of classic in the building. You get some of these tankier targets like the Atlas, as well as, you know, across the way you got variety there. Maybe we'll see the execution, I want to say. It's not as tanky a lineup for the Kings with Zapman's build this time round.
Yeah, I mean, the sustain is pretty much what you're wanting to argue with right now. Because
so
obviously,
Asi, right?
Yeah, Netrioid has the heal in his kit. He has the Death Toll. He has the Aussie, and again, the Spring Stance. All sorts of healing in this lane. If you're trying to match that amount of sustain, I'm saying if you're Medusa right now, Aussie is going to be the build of choice. But of course, you could just be saying, hey, I want to go for some early aggression. Look at the Frostbound from Variety, just making sure that Yarkor cannot really escape for really so much damage as they just trade back and forth. There's not even any buffs up yet. There it is. The blue buff finally spawned, so it looks like Variety is trying to just get some pressure that way, but no junglers quite close enough.
I do like the Stone Binding from Yarkor this game as well. To kind of forego the breastplate for a minute, realizing he's fine. Stone Binding, great item, just hard to fit in builds most of the time. You know, where can you really fit it in and make it feel natural? Someone like Kabrakan, every single ability pretty much utilizes this passive.
Yeah, trying to get that extra penetration online in lane is going to help you out a ton. Obviously, not really recognizing that much magical damage on this side. You don't want to go for that Void Stone just yet. Stone of Binding, little protections here, little there, but it looks like Genetics might be trying to catch Zapman out here.
And Zapman will have to use the beads after the ultimate from Netroid. Connects the tail end of the beads, consume that Spirit Ball there that was on the mark and would have stunned out. And Netroid using the battle a little bit there between him and Zap. And you actually saw Atlas trying to get into the fray, but Twig's on the scene a little bit earlier, and Zapman should end up falling down, hit to the Spirit Ball at Genetics. And Camelot Kings pick the pocket of Leviathans, who were caught out of position themselves. They also lose a Tier 1 tower.
That's the first blood of this game, 12 minutes in. Zapman with some fancy jukes underneath that tower, but when there's 3 Kings strong diving you under the tower, it's going to be very rough. Obviously, Rongyu did try to come over and help, did send the Gamma Ray Burst that way.
He didn't. That was like, hey, Zap, I was there. You know, I threw my ult. That's all I could do. I could have been over here earlier.
I mean, I've seen them leave Zap high and dry many times, so I think he did what he could. But Variety's here looking at Shinto, has the Frostbound.
Shinto does a good job of transforming, though, and managing to use his CC immunity to peel away and not have to consume the beads after the Eagles rally. Now Variety a bit far forward here, surrounded by 3 members of Leviathans. Paniton round the corner, too, and Variety just bit off more than he can chew. The rest of his team is nowhere to be found to support that engage. engage, and, well, that's the pain you take. Great play, though, individually from Shinto there to recognize he can just use that ground form CC immune ultimate to avoid the stun that came through.
Yep, obviously Variety going a little bit too far there, so he will finally be able to have a return kill. Leviathans get their first on the board, but look at this gold lead from the Camelot Kings that they've accumulated here, just making sure to play the map as well as they can. You see someone on the left side of the map, you get farm on the right, that sort of thing. It's starting to add up pretty heavily right now. Twig has just been a madman. He's got the Golden Blade clearing these camps so quickly on the Bakasura. He eats a Harpy here, and then he just gets movement speed and runs to the next one.
And credit where it's due as well for what we saw Twig do there. Variety gets picked on the red buff at the left-hand side of the map. Twig's over and right, taking the farm, making sure they don't lose towers, and that experience doesn't go to waste. Sometimes just realizing where the farm is and where it's not going to be consumed is some of the best places to be. And as a jungler, it's a hard task to balance of, like, should I be ganking, should I be farming, should I be covering lanes?
Right now, just trying to get this Bakasura build online, so just being a madman for the farm is going to be Twig's, play style here. Obviously did just finish the kin size, so that's going to be a good amount of HP shred on these tankier targets. I think Captain Twig probably going to be looking to try to gank these tanks by this build. Already has the stone cutting sword. The Golden Blade's more so just for farm, but that kin's in stone cutting. That damage is really going to start adding up, especially if you're with Genetics getting that Shogun's passive as well.
Well, Oni Fury up in around 15 seconds time here. As you can see, both teams starting to position that way. Leviathans on scene with wards available to start clearing that out. Meanwhile, the Kings, a little bit lackluster on the ward coverage here. Only Twig with a sentry available to try and defend some of that vision battle that will go on. But Leviathans are prepared for this Oni Fury. Is this the right stage for an Oni Fury to be very impactful at the moment?
At the moment, I mean, unless you're really dealing with Firewaves, I think everyone can kind of just sit back and clear the Oni minions. The gold is really what's going to be important here, as the Leviathans recognize that they're going to try to 50-50 this or at least bait someone in.
Yeah, but Zeus is still in the mid lane right now. Oni Fury down to half health. In comes Genetics trying to drop down the circle of protection. Eagles rally from Variety to Spirit Ball through, but Leviathans get the Oni Furies. Variety takes out Wrong You. Yorkor very low in this engagement, but so is Captain Twig, who got to the backside. He'll escape, and the Kings get away, but they do lose the Gold Fury.
This is the problem I usually have with this sort of full tank ESET build. You have the Circle of Protection, you're using it to try to out-confirm Gold Furies, but it just doesn't do that much damage unless you're building into it. Obviously, with a Gauntlet of Thieves and a Shogun's Kasari, you don't really have that much damage. The Tearing the Veil did about 291, was able to confirm that Gold Fury, so hats off to Panatom, making sure the neutral objective goes their way. Of course, Leviathans climbing back into it. They weren't too far down, but they're evening up that gold lead a little bit.
Definitely. I think the biggest difference there is that Zeus was still in mid, wasn't he? So he wasn't even at that objective to try and drop the ultimate down, cause some problems for the Leviathans. And I guess that's why we saw Genetics go, well, I guess I'm throwing the Circle of Protection, hoping for the best, because we've seen a couple of steals so far in this series. Variety finds Panatom in the jungle here with that Frostbound Hammer. Could stay attached if he wants to, but doesn't want to overextend too far after what happened last time round. Meanwhile, the Kings will send Twig to solo down the Pyromancer, costing most of his life, but it does continue to trend in their favor, especially after losing those two Furies.
Yeah, it really seems like right now the name of the game is that whenever you see go down on the left, go to the right and find your sort of farm right there. Obviously, Variety is getting very aggressive, posting up even to Panatom's speed buff, just saying like, hey, I'm this Bellona, I'm going to be the biggest bully I can right now, making sure you can't match Captain Twig's farm. Bakasura, level 17 at the moment, so he has been just running to farm as quickly as he can, as that man might be able to get a counter tower here, and it looks like he will finally drop it. So the tier 1 tower on left goes down, matching that solo lane tower that's about to go as well.
Yeah, a bit of a mistake there, I'd say, from the Kings, losing that tower on the left-hand side. I think they had the opportunity to have someone defend and stop Zap from getting that free push. Twig in mid, though, using the Regurgitate to try and force back Shinto, and Wrong-You does so, but he doesn't get a whole ton of damage off for the pleasure. You can also see that Obsidian Shard now picked up as well for Shinto in the mid lane, so that's going to cause a couple more problems as time goes on. This penetration, very important.
Oh yeah, the percentage pen specifically is going to be helping out a lot, but Variety was in the back line the whole time.
The Eagles rally Spirit Ball after the fact on Shinto too, but Shinto's fine, as now Camelot Kings try to fall back towards their tier 1 tower. They know Zapman and Yorkor are on the way, and it's Ting's left on an island. Great shout, but it's not enough to keep him alive at the moment. Genetics, who came in to support his mid laner, ends up falling too, and now a window opens up for Leviathans to look towards the FG, or maybe a cheeky pick in the jungle.
This is why we've seen that sort of hybrid Zeus build so contested at the moment. The Legion Helm and the Void Stone keeping Zeus alive so he can do his damage is what you want. But right now, Tings has full damage, so not able to survive that amount of dive at the moment as the Leviathans are sort of dancing around this Fire Giant. Do they want to commit to it? It's 3v5 at the moment.
Trying to drag in the Camelot Kings, it feels like, trying to force some of those abilities and find a pick. Your core continuing to chase there to the backside of Variety as Twig wraps around the back. I'll be honest, the Tomaku going down there tells him that someone's around that corner, and Panitom senses the danger potentially. Zapman getting low. Twig coming in with a Regurgitate here, looking for the damage on Zap. He uses a great Aegis to buy time, but it's not going to be enough. Twig gets a double kill. Shinto, meanwhile, does take out Twig, and Netroid, who was trying to solo the FG, will not get it. It's Leviathans to secure it, but what can Variety do against 3? The bludgeon off the marker. Shinto leaps away, and Shinto gets himself a double kill. A delayed fight there overall. Did Netroid make the right call going for FG there, did you feel? I saw you shaking your head a little bit.
I just found it very odd that he was trying to 50-50 that against Yarkor, who has so much burst and CC to try to just stop you. Obviously, the Fire Giant would have killed Netroid anyway. He was stuck for so long. Once the orbs came down, he was just like, I cannot even leave, so I'm just going to go for the 50-50.
Would you rather have seen him like go for the aggression and kill the other guys around?
Yeah, I really think that if they had his DPS, maybe they were able to pick up Shinto there. Obviously, Variety was pretty close, but Shinto had a super nice juke on the bludgeon with the jump from Tiamat. So at this point, you pretty much lost everything there by the Leviathans. I mean, they have such a lead at the moment. Twig was able to pick up one, so at least you don't have 5 Fire Giants to deal with. You only have 3 Fire Giants to deal with here, so that's going to be a little bit better. But at the moment, Shinto still does have it. You have 1 carry, and Yarkor is going to be doing a good amount of damage as well. It does have a fair bit of penetration with the Stone of Binding, as we said.
But we'll see what they can do with the Gold Fury now, because that has just about to respawn, I should say, and Leviathans can start trending in that direction. As you said, though, Zapman not having the FG this time round, it does reduce the amount of damage he's going to put out on towers, but the front line having the FG, I mean, they can just tag a couple more tower shots and regenerate that back up too. We'll see what Leviathans choose to do. At the moment, there's a bit of a split going on. 2 in mid and 2 down the left-hand side. Wait for this Gold Fury to come up. And it's given a window for Yarkor to maybe look at the obelisk. Not really interested in it, I've noticed. Leviathan's not really paying too much attention to that.
Yeah, it really seems like Genetics has been the one that is trying to steal it away at all times. The Camelot King's putting a lot of stock in it, but look at this.
Zap's alone again.
Yeah, Zapman again, way too far up, but this time no sort of rotation from the Kings. They're letting this happen, so I think this time Zap knows that there's no one around, so he's doing this freely, but you see Twig on the other side going for that counter push with the Regurgitate and the minions. Twig can definitely get this Phoenix, if not back.
And I guess the question is, who could really 1v1 Twig at this point? Honestly, it's going to be Paniton that comes back to defend the Phoenix line, potentially on that right-hand side. But when Twig senses that, I don't think there'll be a whole ton of pressure continuing. It's the right play, I think, sending Paniton, because he can just jump in the wall if he's really under a lot of pressure from that Regurgitate. Meanwhile, Kings will hold that tier 2 in mid for the time being.
Yeah, I think if Twig does try to find the kill here, it should just be a beads and hide in the wall. Looks like that is what's going to happen, but doesn't even have the HP, so just going to run away. Twig not wanting to chase this one, but I think he recognizes that none of the Leviathans are coming back to help, so he's going to stick around.
Yeah, did get the beads down as well from Paniton there, so that's going to be a big influential moment if we're going to get aggressive again with the Leviathans here. They're going to take the Gold Fury away, though, as Camelot Kings try and clean up the remnants of their jungle that wasn't stolen by Leviathans there. Red buff now around Tings' waist for this defense. And you kind of look at the state of the game and go, okay, how's the engagers going to play out from Leviathans? You're really probably looking at this blink from Yarkor to be initiating these fights.
Yeah, at the moment, they do have the Phantom Shell. Genetics will be able to get Zeus out of the Cabrakan walls, which they never had before, obviously. So in BMT, whenever he was stuck between that Cabrakan blink, there was really nothing he could do. Now, Phantom Shell is available, so if Yarkor does want to get aggressive, probably going to have to bait that out first. But looking at these builds, I mean, Shinto just ticked over, finished his starter item. 3-0 on this Tiamat mid right now. Shinto's going to be the biggest damage threat, I would say, for how much damage he has built at the moment, and he really hasn't had too much pressure on him.
I think the biggest thing is look at the Camelot Kings player damage there. The bottom of the shop is big man Tings at the moment. He's not had a chance to be influential on this Zeus pick. It was first picked in game 1, I want to say, and then this game it was also first picked. But they've not managed to find much fruition with it so far. Only 1,300 damage. It shows how well Leviathans have played around that Zeus and nullified some of what they can offer up. Leviathans, though, grouping with 4 in the mid lane and leaving Panitom off to the right-hand side, where Twig is currently hanging around too to try and deny that split push opportunity. Keep an eye on the mid lane, though, on this engage if Leviathans choose to go for it. But with the Fire Giant wearing off, I think we'll be waiting for the next one to spawn.
Yeah, I really think Twig had a great play by making sure that Zap did not live with that Fire Giant. They really weren't able to get too much off that power play. I mean, only one tier 2 tower. still 2 available, and the Fire Giant's, it's gone at this point. It's going to be spawning again shortly, so making sure the ADC of the Leviathans, the most real structure damage you have, not going to be able to help out on that push too much. That really stopped that gold lead in its tracks. So now it's going to be the same sort of dance around this Fire Giant, right? I mean, still, Genetics has no form of real power, so Circle of Protection is going to be out-confirmable if played correctly by Shinto and, you know, the Veils from Kleena, so looks like Genetics might be cut out already, though.
He really is. Drops the Circle of Protection on himself and Wrong You with the support of Panitum with an 9 lane, but Genetics manages to CC chain and dump his ultimate down, taking out Wrong You, support for support off the table. Relics were consumed by Wrong You there as well, which could come into play, but Phantom's found a window on Variety here. Knocking down the health bar won't be enough for a kill. Good news is, though, if you're a Kings fan, Variety does have that teleport to get back in the fray, but Twig also eats a ton of damage from Panitum at this level 20 now, and Leviathans with a kill on Genetics there, 1 for 1. They've got the opportunity to look at FG once more.
Yeah, Variety does have the teleport available, and it is going to come down now. The Eagles Rally is the only ultimate on the Camelot Kings.
Too quick, this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be burned too quick unless... Nope, Tings can't even find the Chain Lightning.
It goes Variety, though, with the blink. Looks for the Eagles Rally. Too late to the party, but he does get a good stun on 2 targets and did get the beads out of Shinto. But now Variety's health bar is melting. Finally, Tings gets in the action with a Chain Lightning. It won't be enough damage from the Detonate to get a kill on any target. Instead, it's Variety that ends up falling down. Now Shinto's on the march, trying to chase him down with that minion in tow, but out of range is Twig at the moment. FG on 4 members of the Leviathans.
Yeah, Variety had to blink at that exact moment or would have been put in combat a little bit late on the steal attempt, obviously, but it looks like Phantom sort of knows that Twig's around here. Yeah, it's not going to let this Bakasura free farm and push with the Golden Blade. I think Phantom's going to try to chase him down here, and he has found him. This could be a 1v1.
But Regurgitate's available for Twig as well, and I'll tell you what, if that's available, Twig will show you the power in the 1v1 with a Bakasura. Now, Leviathans with 4 members in mid, marching on down towards Netruid, who gets all in by Yorkor, but good defensive use of the relics to keep himself topped up. Camelot Kings hold the line. Spirit Ball will connect on your core. No follow-up damage available, though. And it's Zapman's health bar that is too low for the Leviathans to continue marching. Maybe Twig can catch him on the wraparound here, but instead, he's just going to strip away that red buff.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Twig. He's going to be going for that tier 2 tower. Obviously, the Camelot Kings can chase this, knowing that they have the numbers advantage. Twig is just going to keep pushing. He's got the Golden Blade, but it looks like finally they have collapsed on him.
And the slow from that Medusa ult will be enough time, but Twig going to go back in and try and take the 1v1, realizing Yorkor was wrapping around the back. Now with so many of the Leviathans, though, heading to that left-hand side to deal with Captain Twig. It does open up that tier 1 in mid lane for Kings to find. And back to their own side of the map they go now. 6 to 9, 25 minutes in the game. And a 3k gold lead for the Leviathans.
Yeah, still a numbers advantage for the Leviathans. If Shinto does start sending those lizards down one of these lanes, they could be having to send someone over for the split push, but it looks like just trying to really get these tier 2 towers. Only 1 that time as well. You still have a little bit of time on FG, but once again, only 3 members of the Leviathans have that Fire Giant buff still. This time Zapman has it, so that is going to be a little bit better for your DPS, as he seem to be posturing for that Primal Fury as it's about to spawn in, but trying to deal with Captain Twig seems to be a big issue right now for the Leviathans. This Bakasura seems to be finding farm everywhere and then pulling people away and then winning those 1v1s.
But who do you send, I guess, is the question, to deal with a 1v1. I think that's the right strategy the Kings are looking for, to use that Bakasura. It's definitely feeling, though, that the state of this game at the moment, it could still go either way. The next Fire Giant, for me, is probably the biggest moment of the game. Just based off the map positions right now, I feel like there is Phoenixes exposed on both sides here. So one Fire Giant that goes wrong could be the win for either side. At the moment, though, I'm leaning the Leviathans with how this is going.
Yeah, their team fight has been pretty nice. As long as they're not chasing around a Bakasura, I think they've been, winning that pretty handily. But at the moment, it still is ticking over to that enhanced Fire Giant spot. So if they do it right away, they will not have time to get the extra enhanced buff. But if they try to just wait a minute, that could be a way bigger power spike for whichever team does opt to pull. Looks like those Tiamat Lizards are going to be in this duo side, so they are going to have to send people over. Even though they're not fire minions, they still will add up some damage. They are going to have to come over here and clear those, as we have about 1 minute and 30 seconds on this Fire Giant play. Looking at the upgraded starters, that's really where the last sort of power spike we're going to be seeing at the moment. Variety still does not have that Death's Embrace. Netroid Does not have the Death's Embrace or the Death's Temper either. Sort of could build into either of those, but looking over at the Leviathans, we have that Blood-Soaked Shroud for Yarkor, once again making him extremely tanky. The Bumba Spear for Panatom has been finished for a minute now, so that's going to add a lot of extra auto attack damage and things of that nature. So build-wise, the Leviathans are looking pretty strong going into this firefight.
I will say this first set of the day, though, been a bit more of a tactical battle than a bloodthirsty one, and that's why I kind of brought up later on. We're going to have a bit more of a scrap fest, I say. Bolts versus Warriors, I expect more kills in that game than this series combined. Let's see how that plays out. But yeah, definitely more tactical focus between these two. It really is a knife edge between both, where one pick could definitely change the course of the game. But so far for me, it's been more to do with steals than anything else regarding objectives. They've turned the tape. Left-hand side, though, you can see to a great stun from Genex to try and buy some time, but he is on his own still here. He's too far forward, trying to live, just trying to get some vision. It's bought time for Captain Twig to get a tier 2, and now he's on a Phoenix line here. Can he go for the Phoenix is the question. No one basing just yet. Tel'Alliance, Panitom on the way, and a teleport also being used by Yarkor instead to get back and defend, and that's opened a window for Leviathans to look at a tier 2 on the right-hand side. The other 3 members of Kings have kind of just sat back. Yeah. They weren't really in a position to assist anywhere.
That's a great play by Yarkor. He was the only one who could really make it in time. Panatom had to cancel his back because he was like, I'm not going to make it. That Phoenix is gone. And then Yarkor said, I can teleport. So now just stalling, keeping this Bakasura here. It's a 4v3, and the Leviathans are going to be looking towards this Phoenix. They don't need the Fire Giant.
And Eagles rally down from Variety too. Nice little knock-up from Shinto. Just a lower health bar, a little bit more. Not a minion wave, though, to pressure for a Phoenix. And in the jungle, Yarkor and Twig are continuing this exchange. Twig trying to farm back up, and Yark's going to be a little bit careful here. Even though he played that last fight pretty well, Yark is continuing the chase, but Fire Giant just spawning again. This should be an enhanced one too, Trelly, so this may change things around.
We have 29 seconds if they are going to wait that long. Obviously, if they do, Genetics will make it, and it'll be a 5v5 fight once again. Most of the ultimates, the key ultimates are available, but Yarkor's going to blink in.
Great way from Variety to buy as much time as possible. Still alive on the backside. Twig got very, very low at the tail end there, but will survive too. Now Geneg's back in the fray, but Netro's been left on his own on an island on the right-hand side. Falls back towards his team. Blinking mid lane from Panitom, though, gets 2 kills as the health bars on Variety and Twig are just too low. Now Leviathans march down the right-hand side. They don't even need minions at this point. Shinto feeling it and goes in for the knock-up, gets the beat out of big man Tings, and Genetics now under pressure too. Pulled back in towards the team. Medusa ult connects, but it's not enough damage for the kill. He'll still find it with the basic attacks though, and the farm fest of the Phoenix begins. The Phoenix on the right hand side now under threat. And that was just one by one, like dominoes, they fall.
I don't think they're going to be able to end here. Big Man Tings is the only member of the Camelot Kings that could defend against this. There's a Lightning Storm available. There's about 3 targets, but he has to waste it so early.
And he's going on Shinto, who does have aggro from the Titan too, but the Titan will not be enough to bring down Shinto. Now pulled in his Big Man Tings. The Titan is slowly falling, and the world champions here are going to defeat the Camelot Kings 2-1 at the tail end of this one in just over 30 minutes.
That was a great play by Shinto, making sure to get that Lightning Storm down so they could end, but also Panatom making sure to continue the chase so that they could make sure. We don't even need Fire Giant at this point. I'm going to get 2 low health targets, get a double kill. Now it's a 5v3 and Variety gets picked. Just a great play by Panatom and Shinto, making sure to end that one out.
But we did show that Leviathans can bleed this year already. You know, Kings did take a game there, but how do you feel about the Kings overall, Trelly? What is it you feel like they need to change or are just now looking at how they performed in that set?
I mean, Twig definitely showed that he could play the map very well and make sure to get his farm online, but he wasn't very active looking for those ganks, looking for aggression. They had the farm game, but the team fights just weren't there. He was always split pushing, so I'm thinking they're going to have to tighten up the team fights. If Twig is going to draft something like that Bakasura, he could have definitely got to the backline and helped them out.
Or the other option is, I mean, if you're going to draft that way, make sure your backline is supported a little bit better than what happened there. Kings fall then, 2-1 to the Leviathans. After the break, we'll break it down on the desk.
Leviathans closed this one out in 3. Took him a little stumble at the very beginning as he goes back to the hover hands, but they find it there towards the end. Not an easy pull for them either, and you heard it in the interview. They called it as the Kings being the second best team at Worlds because they're the ones that ended up winning. And then the Kings here, I think, get to show a lot of that. A lot of good farm, a lot of close moments, and then just a couple of 50-50s on some FGs on objectives, things maybe not going the way they wanted, and the Leviathans get to eke out a little bit further each time.
Yeah, a relatively low-kill game for what we would have expected from a composition where the Kings are running something like a Bakasura out of the jungle. But other than that, once the pace started to peter out, they started to figure out, okay, well, both teams say, how are we going to differentiate? How are we going to create that separation? It came down to a lot of neutral objectives in 50-50 situations. You could say that Shinto's damage was a little bit easier to apply to objectives than it is for Big Man Tings, who has to find multiple charges for Zeus's detonate. Sure, but considering how consistently the coin toss did go over to the Leviathans, gotta think something's just cooking up back there. I want to inspect that quarter, is what I'm saying.
You're going to have to watch it again and again and again just to make sure. I think Shinto is a very easy and appropriate highlight there. That kill may be a lot easier for him and not as much pressure onto him, but the one right before it, like his dash comes back off cooldown, like just as Variety would have gotten a kill. And it's little moments like that, right, where we're really peeled back over in favor of the Leviathans. And we got to see some good plays from Panatom. So I think a lot to kick things off immediately for the Leviathans here. Get the blood pumping, right, with a game 1 fumble, and then immediately go into a 5-0 performance, a 4-3, 2-0 there for Hardcore. They just look good.
They really did, and I really want to highlight that Cabrakan pivot. I would love to hear during the interview, like with the idea behind it, but it just felt like Yarkor made it nearly impossible for Captain Twig to operate. Whenever this Cabrakan was around, Twig would drop ultimate. It'd swing for 2 seconds. The CC meter would run out. He's standing in a pool of his own vomit, stunned. Like, non-stop
Did you
stunned.
have to describe it that way? I mean, I know that's what it is. It's literally called regurgitate, but I don't like that description.
Yeah.
Standing, he's locked
Why
out.
are you booing? I'm
not.
right.
I know, yeah, I guess, you know what? Accurate. Either way, it was a fun one to watch. Man, that was vivid imagery, Mifflin. It's all up in my head. I guess I can talk into the interview about the Cabrakan, although it might not make as much sense because we got Wrong You standing by afterward for the interview. I guess I'll just go with what Mifflin said. What was it about the Cabrakan there at the last game that made you guys want to lock it in?
Well, basically, like, Cabrakan is really good against Zeus and Kernels. They cannot get out of the ultimate. So we basically were like, okay, we can flex this pick or just go to solo. But then I picked Atlas. I was like, let's just go Cabra solo, and it was good. So, yeah.
Now, you played Nox in game number 1. Look, I kept the notes. I
My KDA was good.
Your KDA was good. Well, what inspired the Nox? At Worlds, it was like a good counter for ESET. Was it kind of a similar concept here?
Yeah, here I picked it because I think Nox counters Zeus because I can reduce his damage. And usually Zeus builds defense. And if he builds defense, I'm going to counter his build. But he didn't, so he countered the counter. So that was good by him, I guess.
Just a little stumble for you guys, right? You pick it up in game 2. You go back to the Atlas back-to-back. How are you feeling about the new god? We got to see him, I think, a little bit last week from you. How do you feel about Atlas?
Yeah, okay, so before picking Atlas, I was like, Genesis is going to play ESET 100% because, like, Atlas is so bad into ESET because you can get the abilities cancelled, he's immune. And I was like, I'm just going to cover ESET so he can, make a little fun in the Pix events. But yeah, I just feel like Atlas is a really good CC code. He's fun to play. I tried to snipe a lot of time, but I couldn't make it, but yeah.
Well, hey, you still got the win anyway, right? So who needs the snipes? You managed to nail it. Congratulations on your win, man. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Awesome. So much for them, Mifflin. I think they end up coming through. They look really good in game set number 1. The Kings, I think, get to show off, even though they don't get the win. I think that was a good showcase for them early on. I'm even more excited to see how they are going to fare up against the Bolts tomorrow because they're going to be the ones who I guess, have the initial rematch. In fact, I don't think we see the Leviathans for the rest of the week.
No, yeah, the Leviathans get to ride their high horse, top of the leaderboard at 1-0.
Man, they win Worlds,
they got
win
rings
the
on their
kickoff tournament,
hands.
they get to come back and win the first set.
Somebody's got to knock these guys down a peg, man. The Leviathans cannot keep getting away with it.
And, well, hey, so far, they still are. We'll see how that continues throughout it. They haven't been able to go completely undefeated throughout the last couple of years, and we'll see how well that works out. Good knockdown and a good game 1 from Kings. Unfortunate for them, they fall down 2-1 to the Leviathans. Next up, the Bolts taking on the Warriors, which I'm excited about. Saw the Bolts a little while ago that were hanging out here, of course, and then I walked in and the Warriors were playing ping pong a little bit, and they're much more relaxed vibe I got out of them. Very, very chill going into this. A team that, you know, they got their spot back. It's going to be fun to watch how they fare now up against the Bolts, who remain together just the same. It's the same 10 matchup.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit more pressure on the Bolts in this matchup, considering that they were more solidified in their SPL standing, whereas the Oni Warriors had to fight their way back in, dropped a couple of games against some of these SEC teams as well. And the Olympus Bolts, in deciding to stick together, need to prove that there's a reason for it. Both teams do stick together, but maybe just a little bit more pressure on the Olympus Bolts, as they are technically the higher seed, I suppose.
Technically,
Technically?
I didn't expect you to drop there, and I'm going to correct myself. The Leviathans play again on Sunday. I had the Kings written down there, and that's why I glanced over, and I was like, why are the Kings playing 3 sets this week? That seems an awful lot. No, it's the Leviathans and Warriors, so maybe not an easy week for the Warriors. We'll see how they fare here against the Bolts in just a little bit. We'll be right back, and then we'll have set 2.